McDaniel can't move on it. Now he does. The shot, passing down. Rebound, score!
Hopefully it looks a little bit clearer on my end. I don't know if you guys will see anything, but comment below if I don't look like a complete blur this week, unlike every other week. So it would be nice to hear some feedback on that.
So it's Robin Thicke level blurred lines right there. Yeah, so season's starting up here. I don't know. I've just been weirdly watching like other sports because there hasn't been much hockey to really talk about. I mean, there are a couple things we can talk about, but I feel like I'm kind of wait and see on the McDavid Kaprizov contract situations for right now. But I don't know. I will say
so much speculation with those. I just don't bother until I hear something concrete. Oh, X person has demanded or has submitted a trade list, or X person wants this much, or if the deal gets done. Until that happens, I just don't bother. I don't really care because it's just all speculation.
My take for now is I do think they'll both re-sign because we just haven't seen that level of movement outside of Rantanen. But if it does go into the season and they don't have a contract, I just don't see the argument to waiting out free agency. And if they get to free agency, I'm rooting for max chaos. I want some Miami Heat level shenanigans to go down. You know what I mean?
Well, we were joking. Is he's friends with Shesterkin, and I think is Gavrikov one? Or I don't remember which of the Russian guys in New York, but
I'm sure all the Russian guys are tight, right?
Yeah,
they have to be.
He might be going to New York potentially if he gets to free agency, so that's a concern.
My max chaos thing, and it won't happen. But McDavid and Kaprizov signed for the Rangers. That's my max chaos thing. Also, another interesting thing again, for the record, think McDavid will sign with Edmonton. But when we'll talk about this in the season preview, Kopitar set to retire. Could McDavid take the throne of Gretzky and go to LA? Is that in play? It is, right?
I was gonna joke about that. I was like, are we gonna have another big Canadian superstar leading for LA? I guess this time it's not. This time you're not trading him, I suppose. So the owner won't have his.
Maybe the Ken Holland connection is tighter than we know. Maybe
I honestly joke. If Holland could land McDavid, I feel like
could you imagine
his GM tenure would flip from complete shit to okay, fair enough, this is fine.
That, if McDavid lands in LA, that alone, I'd have to be you know what? Ken Holland can do all the shitty things. It doesn't matter. I'd be you know what? Hey, you can sign all the Cody CC light adjacent players you want. I'd be cool, you got McDavid when nobody thought it would happen. But also, realistically,
didn't McDavid walk out Morgan Wallen recently at the concert in Edmonton?
Yeah, in Edmonton,
Yeah, okay, I saw that.
I was surprised Morgan Wallen was in Edmonton. That's a random city to be. I mean, granted, it's, concert.
Yeah, well, I mean, tour.
But it's kind of a random city because normally Calgary makes sense more because Calgary's a bigger city. It'd be playing Edmonton's not Saskatchewan, but it'd be Morgan Wallen concert in Winnipeg. Although he did a concert in London, Ontario, which is pretty,
That's interesting. Wait, do you remember who walked him out in the Toronto one? I remember, was it?
No.
I remember seeing a clip. There was a clip where he tried to imitate the bat flip from Batista, but I think he hit Batista's wife.
That might have been who it was. Yeah.
Was it actually Batista? Okay, it was Batista.
Maybe.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was.
Batista was there because he did the bat flip and he hit Batista's wife with the thing by accident.
Yeah, it was a pure accident, really.
Yeah, I think Batista. Yeah, you might be right actually because he does an athlete. He didn't.
Yeah.
He did Mahomes and Kelsey in KC. He did Max Crosby in Vegas, and I think Brady too came out with him. Yeah, he always does athletes usually.
I'm pretty sure if I read correctly, yeah, I remember Morgan Wallen used to be a base, he was a base. He played baseball before he broke his stuff, before he broke his arm or some shit. I think that was how he stopped. But
him and the guys from Florida Georgia line, yeah.
I thought what's his name? Was Daddy Yankee one of them too? I thought he was. I thought he was I could be wrong. Okay, that might be wrong. I thought he got shot through the hip before but I could be completely wrong. Somebody in the comments.
I know Nelly did baseball. I know Wallen and Florida Georgia Line did. I'm not sure about anybody else, to be honest.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you just watching football? Otherwise, is that the other sport
you're
watching?
Dude, man, it is depressing. Can I say though?
I've been dabbling into other weirder things. I guess I don't know. I was watching women's rugby recently, but that's more out of curiosity. But no, apparently I don't know. Maybe apparently Canada's good at women's rugby, number 2 in the world. That is apparently one thing I've learned.
Okay,
we are better than
sure.
New Zealand. Apparently, we are better than New Zealand now in terms of world ranking. That is definitely not something I would have predicted if you told me this. Because you know how good the All Blacks are in general, right? Like how good they're at rugby in general, right?
Of course.
So a bit surprising.
The Hakas are legendary, bro.
Also, apparently they won their semifinals match against New Zealand today, so they're playing in the finals of the Women's Rugby World Cup against probably
who's number 1?
England's number 1. Here, I'll pull this up just for the memes because this is kind of funny because like,
man, I started watching when you have like college football. Like I dabble again. Granted, I don't know a ton, but man, can I say college football fandom in terms of sports fandoms shits on every other fandom in terms of how passionate they are. Like the amount of things I see people post about their coaches and about their players is just insane. Like there was this one. So for people that don't know, the head coach of the Gators, Florida Gators, University of Florida, is this guy named Billy Napier, and there was this funny comment. Like I was looking on Twitter because I guess they faced LSU recently. Their quarterback threw 5 picks in a game, and they lost by 10, which is kind of crazy if you think about it.
You throw 5 picks and you still only lose only by 10. Like,
so
how many picks the other guy throw?
The other guy threw like 2 bad ones, but still. So this Florida fan wrote on their board, "My wife got deported 2 months ago, and I'm still more upset with Billy than Ice."
Oh no.
Or there's this clip going out where they were interviewing Alabama fans about the Powerball lottery, and they're like, "Oh, what would you do if you won the lottery?" And the lady said, "If I won the lottery, the first X amount of money I would use to pay the buyout for the Alabama head coach." Like they are passionate. I give them credit. Like it's actually, is the football like the highest quality? No. Like quarterback play is atrocious in college football outside of like a few guys. Like I think Miami has a really good quarterback, Carson Beck. LSU, Oklahoma, like they seem to have good quarterbacks. But if you have a bad quarterback, it's so apparent. Oh, and Oregon has a good quarterback too. But it's just the quarterback plays all over this, but the fandom, the atmosphere, like that all is just, it feels so unmatched. And it's so cool because it feels, I'll say this, it feels more pure of a fandom than like every other. Like there are teams who have no chance to win. Like they're not going to go to the college football playoff, but you'll see like fans of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a team here off the top of my head.
Vanderbilt?
I don't know. Cal Bears. Like you'll see their fans show up, and you know they're maybe going to finish top 25, but it's cool. Whereas for me personally, like watching the Carolina Panthers as a Panthers fan, almost every game now after 2 quarters, I'm out. Like it's atrocious to watch.
Random question, sir. I guess this is completely random, not related to college football. Have you ever had a sport where like the ranking between 1 and 2, like the rankings seem close when you look at the like head to head between the two, like I guess like players, countries, or whatnot? It's just not even close.
Is it like... I think you mentioned the Sinner. Well, you mentioned the Sinner. What's his name? Alcaraz thing, but yeah, okay, honestly, so back in the day, granted this changed, but Alabama just used to own Georgia. From what I've learned in my slow ascent here, Alabama like would just own certain teams. So like when no matter what, if Alabama was 1 and you were 2, you just knew you were losing to Alabama under Nick Saban, apparently. So that's probably. But I will say there's certain times in other sports I feel that way too. Like maybe that's just a recent run with the Chiefs, but like Chiefs versus Ravens, Chiefs versus Bills, I just always, even though I think the Bills and Ravens are both
less. Chiefs versus Ravens less so, right? Because Chiefs versus Bills, the playoffs like that. Because they
Chiefs have also beaten the Ravens every time too.
Not ever. Is it really every single time? Yeah. But they played less though, right? I thought they only played 2
times.
Yeah,
they've played less. Yeah, but like the Chiefs
so
have
a little
beaten
bit different.
The Ravens. I'm just saying, like it's that same idea where every time I think and granted, this feels like it's going to shift. The tide's going to shift this year, but every time I see the Chiefs versus like the Ravens or Bills in like a crucial game, there's something ingrained that no matter where the Chiefs are, I just think they're going to pull it out. But again, that's always subject to change, right? So
yeah, okay. So the reason I asked that was because on the back to the topic of rugby. So like, you remember when I mentioned it was England 1, Canada 2?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to guess our win percentage against England, just out of curiosity, like in our
0.
history of playing them? 8%.
0.
We've won three games out of the 37 times we played them, and we haven't won since 2017. And then same thing with New Zealand. We actually have a 10% win rate against them, although I think recently the 2 games we played against them we won and tied. But like before we won and tied those 2, I think it was even the win percentage was even worse than the one against England. I guess the team's getting better, so I guess it's starting to flip a bit. But again, not confident.
I think what's worse than that is like the teams with the PTSD losses, where like you're facing that team and there's all this like nom level flashback of like every time you've lost to this team, it just feels so much worse.
Is it more like Bills Chiefs, for example, like 13?
Yeah, I think that would be a good example, right? It's like no matter what, like, there's the level of flashback of like, oh shit, and especially if it's like 7-7 going in, or like 14-14 going into the third, you're like, oh shit, it's butt clenching time.
Or it's like,
but like the opposite is true sometimes, because knock on wood, like Stars Avs, like I think the Avs, there are times they've been a better team, but knock on wood, like I'm just, I never feel completely out of it as a Stars fan when I face the Avs.
I'll give this like quick story before we actually dive into what we're going to talk about today. I think we were watching Game 7 at your place, and I remember like you were just you're kind of pulling the me when it comes to the Bills. You're kind of just moaning and complaining about the game because you were down 2-0 in Game 7, I think, and then I think like Rantanen just like flipped the game for you guys. It's like, yeah, so it's like that's what I mean, but that's the point about you not feeling out of it. But you're still like you're so mopey for like most of the game, and then when the Stars flipped that, you were like going crazy.
It's worse because they took it a 7 when I thought they wouldn't make it. Like, because Heiskanen and Robertson were basically out, right? And it's like, you took my emotions to 7 games. That's what made it worse.
And you were so mopey. I remember you were so mopey about it. You're like me with the Bills.
100%. But there's always that, like, piece of you, that, like, 5-10% that's like, okay, like, we still can do this somehow, no matter what. And I'll say this year, especially now, like, after that series, knock on wood, because the Avs could just, destroy, like, who knows, right? But knock on wood, like, now after that series, without Heiskanen and Robertson for most of it and still winning that series, that the confidence level just has to be at an all-time high, right?
What would be worse if you had Heiskanen and Robertson, you lost it at 5? How would that just be like the worst way to like?
Be
like, nah.
There'd be a real referendum on that Rantanen trade after that for sure. All right, back to the topic of today. So the season starts in like 3 weeks, I think. So we kind of got to get started on the season previews. We're also going to talk about some fantasy stuff throughout the week, but Yahoo only recently like opened up fantasy hockey registration. So the pre-rankings are still a bit wonky. Like Matthew Tkachuk's ranked 19th in Yahoo, and I definitely think that's going to change. And you were complaining about Marchenko's ranking being in the 240s. But
there's no way that holds, right? Like you can't.
But again, I think those will be subject to. I think closer to next week, we'll probably talk a bit more about values, because right now, everything just feels a little bit wonky. But right now we're doing our season previews. We're gonna kind of go over each division, talk about each team, talk about what we think, where they're gonna finish, key players, and kind of do some predictions related to it. At the end of the day, you got to place well in your division to make the playoffs, right? We're gonna start with what we think is the weakest division of the 4, the Pacific. And we're going to do that to kick off here. So we'll just jump right into it.
It feels like it's always been the Pacific, right? It feels like every single...
There was that run of like Vancouver, Anaheim, LA, all being really good. And then San Jose too, like through the mid-2000s, where they were all really good teams. But after, like, I'd say 2020s, it's been by far the weakest. There's not a second. Like, yes, like, have Vegas won a cup? Has Edmonton made 2 finals? Yes, but overall, top to bottom, it has been the weakest division.
Okay, makes sense. That's what I thought, too. It just feels like it's been a few years where it's just been the weakest. At least that's
some of the teams have been, like, rebuilding for a sizable period of time. So, post San Jose making that cup final, they've been rebuilding for... And they didn't even commit to a rebuild, really, till recently. But it's basically been 6 years, almost. Anaheim's been rebuilding for, I can't even remember at this point how long. Calgary's always kind of been in that weird, we don't know what they are. They're like the Dr. Pepper of the division. We don't know what they are. And Seattle just feels like they've botched their expansion team entirely. So,
Man, must be. I don't know. Like, I feel like botching an expansion team is just like grounds for immediate firing because it feels like the rules nowadays just like help.
Seattle's
like
my hot take. Seattle's like Buffalo West, but worse. And it's funny because they have Jason Botterill, so like they might be Buffalo West, but worse.
Is the argument basically that Buffalo? Yeah, I was gonna say Buffalo has like talent, although maybe they'll find a way to probably ruin them, but at least they have talent. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll jump into it. Yeah, we didn't discuss where we have these teams ranked. So I'm gonna kind of bring it up where I have them, and you can kind of also chime in as well. So last place, I had San Jose.
I think it's
pretty.
As much as I don't like some of the other teams in this division, like San Jose, like they're still young and they need time. That's kind of what this comes down to.
Like, if you're talking about a team that couldn't be worse in every category last year, was the Sharks. Goals for, last. Goals against, last. High danger expected goals for and expected goals against, 29th in both. High danger chances for, high danger chances against, 30th and like, there's no way this team could have been worse in anything, but they were. They really haven't added much. Like, the guys they added this year were Dmitry Orlov, John Klingberg, and Jeff Skinner. These are all short-term deals, and I think it's with the idea of not only helping the current young players on the team, but also kind of if they boost their value to the point where you can trade them midway through the year or near the trade deadline, they're going to do so. Especially in the case of Klingberg and Orlov, because teams are always looking for depth defensemen for playoff runs. And I'd say this, addition by subtraction, Alexander Georgiev, the fact that he's not there anymore is just a positive for this team. Because Georgiev had to be if he wasn't the worst goalie, he was one of the worst goalies in the league last year. I don't know if you agree. My theme for this year is just building the foundation.
I think this year for them, they're just trying to figure out what some of their pieces are. For example, Will Smith looked really good towards like the second half of the year. Does he kind of continue that into this year? Is he going to be good enough to play as a center too? That's the other thing because I think he played wing for most of last year. Eklund's kind of in the same boat. Is he a first line caliber player? Is kind of the question I have.
Is he good? I don't know. Is he?
The talent's there. It's just, is he capable of being a first line player? That's it. Yeah. I mean, is Celebrini going to continue his ascent? Like, he, again, apparently one of the best looking 18-year-olds I've seen in a while. Like, yeah, you couldn't if you're San Jose at least, that couldn't have ended that outcome. That probably was the best possible outcome for you with Celebrini.
Yeah, he's again, like, I'll say this with Celebrini because there's not too much to talk about really. I'm hoping we're witnessing the ascension of the next best center, but he's what I thought, like, the hype around Bedard coming into his rookie year, Celebrini is what I thought Bedard's rookie season would look like. Do you know what I mean? But Celebrini was that. Because he was less heralded than Bedard was, right? But when I watch Celebrini, he has everything. He has the potential for everything. Sorry, he has the goal-scoring ability, the playmaking, the two-way game on defense. Like, even his face-offs, like, so for a young player, and young players are notoriously terrible at face-offs, surprisingly seasoned. So for me, it was the same thing.
He's close to 50%. Like, he's closer to 50% than like most rookies are typically. Like, and faceoffs are a skill that gets better for the player typically as they play more, exactly. Right? So it's gonna go up. So,
but yeah, for me, it's like focusing on the development. Yeah, for me, just focusing on the development of the young guys, like, and figuring out who the core is, and figuring out where everyone ends up. And to your point, like, is Eklund a first line guy? Now, I think Will Smith is right now on center too, but I think if Misa's who everyone says he's supposed to be, I think Will Smith ends up being pushed to the right wing eventually. Because I just don't see a situation where you're going to go Celebrini, Misa, and then have Will Smith on the third line. I think eventually, if Misa's what everyone says he is, eventually Will Smith is going to go the wing. But you have to figure out what these guys are, and you have to figure out some of the supplementary pieces too. I think you also have to figure out who your young defenseman of the future is right now, because again, will it be Sam Dickinson? Will Mook end up taking that power play one, quarterback, defenseman one role? We don't know as of yet. And then you also have to figure out Askarev's ceiling and how he'll do as the 1A starter, because this is trial by fire for him. This is going to be one of the worst defensive teams in the league, without question. Like I said, last year, they were 27th in high danger chances against, 29th in expected goals against, and they really only added Klingberg, who's a defensive liability, and Orlov, who's good, but a little bit past his prime. There's not going to be much in terms of again, in terms of improving this defense substantially. And then when you consider the infusions of talent that might happen, where, like I said, you might see guys like Sam Dickinson come in halfway through the year, and you might see Mook play a bigger role. I don't really know, and young players are notoriously not great defensively. I don't see how the defense improves, so this is really going to be a trial by fire season for Askarov. And he showed glimpses last year. Like, he showed potential in spurts as to what he could be. I am curious to see what it looks like with a full season, where I think what your best case scenario would be a season like Lucas Dostal had last year, where maybe the surface numbers aren't great, but the underlying numbers are really good. And I think that's the best case scenario. But I think overall, like, you look at this team, it's really sketchy after, I'd argue, the top 6. Because let's say you do have Celebrini, Smith, Toffoli, Eklund, and Skinner. That's not bad. The bottom 6 isn't great. And again, there's still guys like Eklund and Smith where you're not sure where they are. The defensive scoring is non-existent outside of potentially what Klingberg can provide.
Yeah. They tried everybody on that power play one. They tried everybody on that power play one. Lilliger didn't work.
Wallman did for a bit until they traded him.
Yeah, well, but to be fair, like you knew Wallman was never going to stick around, right? So
yeah.
Like, you knew he was gone at some point. They tried, I think, this Henry Thrun guy at some point. That didn't work.
I don't think he's even on the roster to start the year right now. Or if he's like a healthy scratch.
I don't even think he's on this team anymore, low key, but I could be wrong. But I mean, they essentially tried everybody they could. They threw every defenseman that basically had any kind of like puck moving skills on that power play. So they're gonna stick Klingberg on there, I think, for sure. As much, even if he's not the same Klingberg as he used to be, it's still better than whatever the fuck they had before.
I think there's just I think if we're talking about, like, again, a lot of this was dealing with next year, because again, we're just accepting that this year is another rebuilding year. I think Klingberg's, while he doesn't have the shot, is good enough maybe decent enough from a playmaking standpoint, and again, could serve as a filler until maybe 65 games in the year, where maybe Mook or maybe Sam Dickinson end up taking over. Yeah, one of the two. I think the issues with this team are, again, supplementary scoring. And while, again, Smith and Eklund have great potential, it's not realized potential yet. So, again, their scoring is a bit lighter as well. And there's not much scoring coming from the point. Like, again, Klingberg's a good playmaker. There's not a lot of shooting on the back end of this roster as well. So the offense is going to be pretty light while they're trying to figure everything out. I think the goal is just to be more competitive and, again, flesh out what this team really is, frankly.
Yep, I guess my question is, do we see Misa start the year with this team? Like, there is a lot of talk he might start the year with this team, so maybe this might be another year where you do see what you have in Misa too, or at least how he looks the first year. And if
that could also
he's a higher pick, and if he looks anything, he's not going to look as good as Celebrini, I think. But like, if he looks anything close to at least what 75% of Celebrini was in terms of his play, like, at least you have another piece there kind of figured out too, and then maybe you can actually move Smith to the wing and take advantage of. Like what you talked about is they're not going to play three top 5 picks down at center. Like, they're not going to have a guy on the third line, so they'll probably move one of them to the wing, right? Although I'm not sure if Misa will be a winger. That's actually another thing I'm curious about too, is who ends up being a winger? Because if all those guys end up being wingers, like Misa and Smith, like, you do have to figure out your second line center at some point too.
Yeah. I think the real, like, unfortunate thing was not being able to get Dobson in the offseason, I think, is what hurt. Like, is, again, just having that guy for sure who can be your number one D-man, because that's going to be, it's also going to be interesting from an asset standpoint, is I think if a defenseman does become available that fits their timeline, San Jose has the most assets that they can go get him. It's just a question of whether that happens. And I think that's what this team is. Like, if I see something that's really lacking, again, assuming it's not on the roster with Dickinson, for example. Like, I think that's what they're lacking here. But overall, this team's just, it's another rebuilding year. It's another year to flesh out this foundation. This team's going to be bad, no doubts about it. But if they're more competitive and, maybe, again, you see Misa be really good. You see Smith take a leap. See Eklund take a leap. Maybe you see Sam Dickinson come in and play a role 60-something games in. Like, that's a win for this year. My X factor so far isn't Celebrini, though. It's Askarov, because I think if you try to establish what you have on this roster going into the season, I just want to know what Askarov is and what his ceiling is. And I think this year, while it is trial by fire,
San Jose knows they have a franchise center, and they know they have the franchise. I'm not going to say franchise center; it might be a little bit pushy, but like, they have the number one center for sure in Celebrini, right? That's it's great they have that figured out. They don't know who their like defenseman one, like power play quarterback, like their high end defenseman is going to be. So they don't have that figured out. But if you figure out Askarov, I think that's what 2 out of 3 things that are like a cup team.
Yeah.
I'm not saying San Jose is going to be a cup contender right now, but if they want to be in a few years, if they at least have these 2 figured out, then figuring out the defenseman, like that's one less thing to figure out, right?
If you think about really good teams, what have they figured out? They're 2 centers, they're 1 D-man, and their goalie. And again, with Misa or Smith, I don't know who's going to end up being the center, who's going to end up being, like, I don't know. But if one of them ends up being that guy, Celebrini's that guy, and Askarov, like, again, if he has a season similar to like a Dostal or Montembeau, where, like I said, the surface numbers aren't great, but the underlines look good, now you have something else as well. So now there's pieces suddenly in place, and now you can also use some of those excess assets to go fill those holes a bit more aggressively. So yeah, for me, this is just he's kind of the more, I have to know what he is.
Yeah, I was actually going to say too, San Jose actually drafted a goalie last year in the first round. I think in this past draft, I think Ravensburg or whatever his name is. So if you figure, if Askarov does end up being your starting goalie, you can actually use Ravensburg as, like you mentioned, a trade piece. Maybe he helps you land that, not elite defenseman, but like a really, really good defenseman. Because right now you are sorely weak in the back. And also the Sharks have a lot of good defensive prospects too. But I don't think any of them become apart from Dickinson, and I don't think any of them become a number 1 guy potentially. I don't think.
It just sucks like the Timo Meier trade. Maybe I overrate Seamus Casey, but I would have really loved them to get Seamus Casey instead of Mook. I just think Casey's Casey has such a higher IQ on the ice, but he just sucks because he's buried in New Jersey. But like he'd be really good in San Jose, I think. But anyways, I have them last.
Yeah, he get more opportunity. He get more opportunity in San Jose. That's for sure.
For sure,
given the options.
But yeah, I have them last. They're probably, to me, a top 3 worst team in the league. There's one team I know for sure.
Imagine they land Gavin McKenna. Imagine they land Gavin McKenna with his team too. Oh my. Dude, that is. Can you imagine if you try to if Misa doesn't turn out to be like a center, can you imagine Misa, McKenna, and Celebrini all in the same line?
But that's another trade asset, right?
Okay, well, I assume not McKenna.
Is McKenna's a center? He's not a wing.
No, he's a winger. He's a left winger.
Oh, okay, then never mind. But now suddenly Will Smith or Eklund become expendable, right? It's crazy. All right. So moving on to the next team. Okay, can I ask who you had second last?
I had Calgary. I leaned more
I had the
Kraken
Kraken.
Seattle. Okay.
I had Seattle. Here's my argument. Okay, we'll flush this out. So Seattle last year was not good at anything, frankly. They were 16th in goals for, but I'm kind of confused how they got there. Because if you look at every other metric on this team, they're 25th in shots for, they're 30th in expected goals for. So they substantially outperformed last year, what they were supposed to do last year. Their power play was only 23rd. So if you thought, hey, all these are coming from the power play, they weren't. Their high danger chances for were 25th. And if you think they were a good defensive team, they weren't really a good defensive team either. They were 23rd in expected goals against. They were 24th in high danger chances against. They weren't top 10 in any category last year. And the only guys they added were Mason Marchman, who's a good middle 6 guy, no doubt, and Frederick Gaudreau, who's basically another third-line center on top of the other third-line centers they have. Yeah. My theme for this year is, what the heck is this team? Does anybody know?
This is just a mismatch of they have a 1 second line and three third lines. Is that basically what this team essentially is? And then I guess the only good thing I like about this team is their decor, right? I think the Montour, Evans, and Dunn is the only good.
Yeah.
Part. And then I guess
and Larson. Yeah, there's good players there for sure. Sorry?
I don't know. Their defense is okay. It's the numbers. Yeah, it's again don't indicate it is that good. But I do technically think they're better than what the numbers they should be better than what the numbers indicate. At least what they have.
I don't think so. I think they overperformed last year, which is sad to say because they were second last in this division last year. It's just, to me, it's what does this team need to do? They need to do too many things, right? They need to figure out the ceiling of guys like Beniers, Wright, Kako, and Evans. Because right now, from what we've seen, I don't think Beniers is that good. That's one issue. Kako seems like a decent middle six guy is what he tops out at. Right to me has the most potential of all the forwards on this team, I think, because if you look at some of their best line play, it was actually done with Shane Wright as the center compared to Beniers, if you look at their expected goals percentage. But I just have an issue with this team where if the young players don't take a leap or their progression isn't linear, where is this team going to generate offense? They were 23rd in team assists. Like, they were 29th in expected goal percentage. They're not a good, like, there's not enough playmaking on this team right now on the forward lines. And it's not like Marchment or Gaudreau are going to add that. And then the other thing, too, is they also don't take enough shots at high danger spots on the, like, they shot a lot of mid-range and from the point, which makes sense, I guess, when you have Dunn and Montour, but it's bad for trying to generate chances. And then the other thing, too, is this team outside of Chandler Stevenson is not a fast team, and they added Mason Marchment and Frederick Gaudreau.
Both guys who are not notoriously known for being fast. if you're
like,
a little bit slow
this team was slow already, and they added slower guys. And I love Mason Marchment, but he's not a fast skater. Let's say like his biggest.
Also, I was gonna say, doesn't he take like extremely dumb penalties at really inopportune
right, like,
times as well?
Mason Marchment giveth, and Mason Marchment taketh away, right? And so overall, when I look at this team, there's questions from the center depth, and Chandler Stevenson was horrible last year by every metric imaginable. Like, the team lacks center depth. The wings are okay. Like, I think McCann's good. I think Tolvanen's a good third line guy. Again, Marchment's a good middle six guy when he has his head on right. Like, there's pieces, right? Kako showed potential last year, but there's not enough playmaking to help set these guys up, which is why, like, when I see McCann and Eberle play the way they do, despite the lack of center play, it's actually really impressive. And there's also the rebuilding factor with this team, right? Like, Schwartz, Marchment, Tolvanen are all UFAs. If they're not going to sign them, there might be the potential to get assets. So this team might actually be worse. The only saving grace for me is, again, you mentioned the Montour, Dunn, Evans potential on to create offense from their end, and Decord's really good.
Decord's in that. I think for me, okay, so maybe I'll go into a bit about the Flames because I think we're both kind of in the same spot with both teams. The Flames are kind of in that same boat too, where again they have a really good, like, Wolf is a really fucking good goalie, but then they just have so many question marks, like, offense wise, right? So like their best player on offense is probably Kadri, right? And Kadri, there's been so many trade rumors floated around. Like, if there's even an inkling that he gets moved before the season, like, the Flames are fucked on offense. Like, you're telling me Michael Backlund's going to be your number one center? Like, mother of God, that is like a hockey terrorism.
You know what's crazy? Backlund's over 30. You'd think he's younger than that, right?
Well, he also just got an extension too, I'm pretty sure. So,
yeah.
So he's sticking around for a while. And like, I guess Coronado might be the other guy you maybe have a little bit more hope for. But apart from that, like, their offense essentially.
To me, they're both teams, the same team with a different coat of paint. In a way, where what are their issues? Offense. Again, Calgary similar. Like, their offense across the board was bad, and their defense wasn't as great as people thought. You know what? Guess what their highest their defense pairing with the highest expected goals against was. Take a guess. This is minimum 150 minutes of ice time, but guess where they finished?
Or sorry, which their pairings or like their team as a whole?
Sorry. So okay. So in their highest for expected goals against. Their best defense pairing, where it ranked relative to the rest of the league. A minimum 150 minutes.
The first question I need to ask is how many defensive pairings are we talking about? Just so I
There were a lot, but just throw a number out there. I'll tell you if you're higher or lower.
85.
Lower.
Okay, 90. Well, sorry,
lower.
Yeah, I guess because we're thinking about that.
Lower.
125.
Lower.
145.
Lower, 154th.
I mean, frankly, I'm not surprised because I think when I looked at their expected goals against, they're in the same range as the Kraken, right? Because the Kraken were 23rd. They were 20th. I think the Kraken are worse because the Kraken's expected goals for is actually worse than the Flames' expected goals for. But I think the Flames also massively overachieved last year. Again, they're not a 96-point team. That's what it. Yeah, 100%.
Like, for me with Calgary, it was I had this theme of the year is where is the offense? Because this team should be rebuilding. And for me, this team's just a bad offensive team overall minus Kadri. Again, similar issues with the Kraken. They lack team speed. There's not a lot of playmaking. And they're a below average possession team compared to the Kraken. And same thing too, huge center questions, right? Backlund's okay, but he's kind of miscast as a second line guy. Kadri, everyone feels like they should be bumped a line lower, where Kadri's not a first line center, he's more of a second line center. But the sad part is that first line is better than the Kraken's first line, which is the main reason I had them at just slightly ahead. I just think there's like a bit more there than there was with Seattle. And they have and to your point, Calgary has a rebuilding factor too. Like Rasmus Anderson has been talked about the entire year as probably
talked about going to Vegas. Has talked about wanting to go to Vegas. Has been talking about wanting to go to Vegas willingly. I think my argument was I feel like it's more likely that the Flames guys get traded like during the year than the Kraken guys, because I feel like Ron Francis is going to do the stupid double down and just bring them all back for like X amount of money, and it's going to seem like a stupid move. But my argument was I think the Flames are more likely to deal their guys than the Kraken are to deal their guys. So theoretically, if the Flames regress, because they're not, look, I don't think they're a 96-point team. Like you cannot tell me this team is a 96-point team, even if a few things go their way this year, kind of thing, right? So if they're let's say they fall back down to like let's say 86, 84. I'm going to be generous, 86, 84 point team. Let's say, that's assuming you have Kadri and Anderson for the whole year. Then, okay, if those guys get dealt at any point during the year, let's say trade deadline for Kadri, I'll say trade deadline for Anderson because that's probably what's going to happen. Then the team's going to be significantly worse after the deadline, right? And I think there's a chance, I think they're going to finish in the really similar range as the Kraken. I do like the Kraken a bit more just because I think that they're at least more likely to retain their guys. At least that was my argument. Because I don't think, again, looking at the different managers, I have more faith in the Flames management than I do the Kraken management. Like the Kraken manager will just double down on this.
100%. Conroy's
Flames
been
manager
really good as a GM.
Will at least be like, okay, well, we're going to lose Kadri for nothing. Let's trade him.
Yeah. Like, Conroy was just dealt a shit hand. Francis dug his own grave of shit. Like, it's completely different.
He dug his own grave. You remember that Mr. Beast video where he like buried himself underground for 48 hours? That's basically
Ron Francis did that. Went to the president, like got promoted, and left Jason Botterill to clean it up. Ultimate heist, ultimate smooth criminal move by Ron Francis right there. But overall, like there are very similar teams. You are right. Like again, questionable center depth, lack of scoring. I'd argue maybe the Kraken have better young guys on the roster, but who knows really. And then their defenses are actually pretty decent. Like at the end of the day, if Rasmus Anderson's there. Like Uyghur, Anderson, Miramanov, guys like that, like it's decent. And then they both have really good goalies in Dustin Wolf.
Although I would give Calgary the edge though. I would give Wolf the edge over Decord.
Yeah, for sure. But Decord's no slouch either. It's just again for me going into the season, I just like Kadri, that as maligned as that Kadri line is relative to the rest of the league, it's better than any line the Kraken has right now. So I had Calgary slightly ahead, and also Calgary actually shoots more weirdly. They're just offensively inept. Whereas Seattle last year were not generating the same level of chances. Like Calgary was 12th in high danger chances for last year, and 7th in shots for.
Second last in shooting percentage too, right? So I think like if they're not second last again, assuming, but actually I don't know. That's a kind of a rough one to ask because they don't have the talent to.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like so for me, I just had Calgary above because at least they generate chances, whereas I don't like Seattle. They not only do they not have the talent to, their system. Granted, new coach, right? But their system under every coach wasn't generating substantial chances. So I don't know why this one would be that much different.
I think you're leaning more. You're just leaning more towards the numbers. I think I'm just leaning more towards the hunch that Calgary just deals all their guys, and like by that point it will be significantly worse. By that point, if they deal all their guys, right? But so they're close enough where I think
you can swap them
between them.
Yeah, that's fine. My X factor for Seattle though, Matty Beniers. Look, like this team needs a number one center in the worst way, and I haven't seen enough of it. Would
you go Shane Wright instead though? Is that a
maybe?
Like,
honestly, my hot take is I think Wright's the better player.
Well, I'm leaning right because Beniers has had so much opportunity to show he's the guy, and he hasn't. Like it's been 4 years and he hasn't. Like he's played the first line minutes, whereas Wright's been kind of buried third line, second line, fourth line. But like he at least looks better. Like I at least feel more confident when I see Shane Wright on the puck. That's just.
I think Wright has the higher ceiling, but Beniers is the better floor guy, which is why maybe they haven't. But yeah, I do agree. Like maybe you're right. Maybe it is Shane Wright because you just want to see what it looks like. Maybe if you give him the deployment, because honestly, they've given Beniers the deployment, and I haven't seen it. Like, yes, is he a hard worker on the ice? Does he try hard? He's not dogging it. Yeah, absolutely. Like, 100% effort, hustle. Like, he makes a lot of good hustle plays. But, man, like, the ability to be a number one center, like, the playmaking, the skating, the shooting, he just doesn't have that.
I'm curious. Okay, so I'm curious about your X factor with the Flames. Would you say it's Coronado? Is that the one you're leaning towards?
I had Wolf. I think if
okay. I had Coronado because I think for me, we know what Wolf. I think I know it's only been 1 year, but I think I kind of know more about what Wolf is. Calgary's main problem is their offense. They have jack shit on offense. If Coronado can at least be a decent, like at least you have something figured out. They've locked him up to that extension, right? I think that's 6 mil or 6-7 mil extension or whatever per year. So I'm more curious to see what Coronado can be. Although again, like with the supporting cast he has around him, if he can at least do it with a really shitty supporting cast, I have to think that if he at least gets better players in the future, he's going to be even better. So I lean more towards Coronado. But like again, if the Flames want to do better this year, it is going to mainly rely on Wolf. Like Wolf's going to have to
100%.
do what he did last year and kind of put this team on his fucking back.
It is it's just with Calgary. Like I don't really believe in any of like I don't say I think Zary and Coronado have potential, but like I think that wave of talent is coming in their next couple of drafts. It's not here yet. Do you know what I mean?
It's a guy they've already. Or it's like Zane Parekh, right? Like one of the guys they just drafted, or like recently drafted.
Exactly. I don't think it's any of these guys on the roster. Although maybe Coronado could do something, but like it's an offensive situation for him that's just hampers. Unless he ends up playing with Kadri and Huberdeau, which maybe, but overall the rest.
I mean,
like,
right
if
now
you're not
the projection's there right now, but like
is it okay? Then maybe, but it's just because this team offensively is such a. It's such a drawback to what you can do. I think like when I see him succeed to his full potential, it's gonna be when this next wave of talent eventually comes in as well. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna joke. It's either you. The other options for right wing first line are Blake Coleman, Igor Sharangovich, or who the fuck is this Adam Klapka guy? I think you have to go. Oh, Zari's left. He's on the left.
Okay.
So he's not gonna be ahead of Huberdeau, sadly. Even though Huberdeau hasn't been great, like. It is what it
70
is.
70 points? Did he hit 70 points last year or was it 60?
Huberdeau?
Yeah.
I have to assume he at least got to 60. Or 50 something.
I have to assume it was 60. I can't imagine many Flames.
He got to 62. 62.
Hey man. It's sad, but that's a win at this point for Calgary.
Yeah, I was gonna say Coronado had 47 last year in 77, so like, I mean, seems like the only guy with any speck of offense in him.
And the other thing too with this team is like the offensive playmaking on the defensive end is also an issue, which is why you mentioned Zane Parekh coming in hopefully at some point to help out. Because don't get me wrong, Uyghur's solid, but he's not a power play one defense. He's not an offensive catalyst really on the defensive end. He's a good.
He's kind of only on the PP because he's their best option. He's the best option they have. That's what it is.
He's very similar to Charlie McAvoy. Like, granted, he's been better the last couple of years than McAvoy had. The last 2 years, and healthier than McAvoy has.
Stays on the ice longer than McAvoy, yes.
But overall, like, I don't think, and again, nothing hampering the offensive system is I don't think there's a lot of playmaking. There's a lot of quarterbacking on that defensive end, which is an issue. Which is why, again, even now, like, I think Miramanov has some potential there, but overall, it's a lacking offensive system. But again, I do think that first line is just better than anything Seattle has, which is a really sad indictment. But you could flip flop either of these teams. I think they're just both non-playoff. They're just not, like, to me, they're non-factors this year.
Yeah, they're not. If they sniff the playoffs, I'd be shocked. Like I
don't think either of these teams are better than the fifth best team in the Central. That's my hot take.
Sorry, I'm having trouble remembering all the teams in the Central right now. But yeah, I mean,
because let's just like last year it finished Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, St. Louis, Utah. I don't think any of these teams are better. I'm sorry, Minnesota. Minnesota finished fourth. I don't think any of these teams are better than Minnesota if Kaprizov's on the roster. So I'd say there's 6 teams in the Central that are better than Calgary and Seattle.
Well, my other argument too would also be the Wild finished better than them without Kaprizov for half the year last year.
Yeah.
So even without Kaprizov, I don't think they're better.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's what I mean. So like, it's a really sad state of affairs here. All right. Moving on to our next team. So this is like my last. This is my. I don't think this is a playoff team, but it's like the best of a bad bunch. And it's kind of like, if you ask me which team of these are going to hit their ceiling and maybe do something, it's this team. It's the Ducks.
Quack. Yeah,
look, like
the Ducks.
I'm going to be honest. There's nothing under their underlying metrics or their surface level stats that tell you this team is going to be a playoff team. There's nothing. I'm just going to be honest. This team struggled offensively for a couple of years. Granted, Cronin didn't have the best offensive system. And his defensive system wasn't great either. But
I wouldn't even call it a system, to be fair. But that's just being an ass.
For some teams, let goalie save all is a system. Okay, that's what they tried.
Apparently, when you have Lucas Dustel, that works. I guess to a certain extent before it all comes crashing down.
But yeah, like the only reason I have the Ducks here is there's a couple things. So one, I do believe in the coaching upgrade theory, where I think if you go from one of the worst coaches in the league, and assuming Joel Quenneville hasn't forgot anything while he was in the I don't know what you want to call it, but the penalty box for coaches. Assuming he hasn't forgot everything, I do think he's at worst an average coach. At worst, an average coach. And I think that him being on the roster, him being coached this year, might, again, just is a substantial upgrade. And if you look at his systems, they're generally very offensive friendly. And for a team with a bunch of young guys that they drafted to be forward, to play, drafted in the forward slots, and a bunch of offensive defensemen, I think if we're going to see a team hit their potential or certain players hit their potential, it's going to be more likely under Quenneville than it would have been under Cronin.
Yeah. I was also going to say, too, I think the Ducks as a whole, in this division, out of all the teams we just talked about, they have one of the better cores of young guys, right? Like, again, like the Flames have like one or two here. Like they have Perek here and there. And then like the Kraken like have a few guys like Bertley, Cat, like guys that aren't ready to come up yet. And I think like San Jose maybe has the best out of the best one in the division, probably just because like they just have so many prospects. But like Anaheim probably is second, so I'll correct and say second, probably the second best core of younger-ish guys, I guess. Because Carlson, like, I mean, he's a top 5 pick for a reason. Like he's doesn't shoot a lot, but I think I still see the talent there. McTavish is good, and I think Zellweger, Lacombe, and Minchikov. Like I think the fact that they have each one of them on different pairings, like they have a puck-moving defenseman on each of their 3 pairings, which I think bodes well for Quenneville's system as a whole. And I guess the question is like which of the 3 takes power play 1? Because I genuinely could not tell you who gets it at this point.
And like Lacombe I think it should be Lacombe because I think you have to lose it, and he was really good last year, at like second half of the year. But either way, with the new
coach, so you never know. With the new coach, you never know though. So yeah.
And that could change throughout the year. I will say the one thing I'll give Quenneville, once he finds something that works, he generally just keeps it rolling, as opposed to where Cronin was changing these guys all the time last year. I think one thing this team, again, the switch from Cronin to Quenneville, one thing it'll do wonders is Cronin always threw the lines in a blender. Like I could not tell you who was where at certain points during the year, but Quenneville's at least, and I think for young players, like having stability in lines and building chemistry is a really good thing. So I think that's there as well. You mentioned having Carlson, Gauthier, McTavish, who hasn't been signed yet, but I'm hoping that gets formulated sooner rather than later. And you mentioned Zellweger, Lacombe, and Minchikov, all, again, high potential to be at least pretty good. The other thing, too, is they made good, unlike these other teams, they made good additions in the offseason. Michael Granlund, while he's not a shooter, is a good playmaking. He can slot in at your wing or center, and he's a good playmaker to have around young. He can help facilitate offense from the wing or from the center slot if he needs to in a pinch. Chris Kreider can help out with a power play that was much maligned last year, where maybe he's not a great 5-on-5 player, but he can help out a power play that was near the bottom of the league. And I think those 2 moves were really good. They still have Troy Terry. They still have Alex Killorn there, who are good. And Troy Terry was their best player last year, if I'm being honest. Or him or McTavish. The only questions I have with this team are if McTavish ends up, this is all assuming McTavish gets signed, I think he's the best center on this team. I don't think it's Carlson.
Yeah, I think he is too, because again, as a guy, I had him in fantasy, so at least I know some of the stats he had. Like, he was a good face. He was a good enough face-off guy. He shot a ton. He also seemed to drive the play a bit better than Carlson did. Because Carlson, I don't know if I'm wrong, but when I did watch him, he does look a little bit timid at times. Like it does, like he's a little bit like not nervous to get into the play, but it's like he's less involved, right? And I think you need a center if you want for your center one kind of guy. You need someone who's like actively involved in the game.
Yeah,
sort of.
McTavish is more aggressive on offense, which I like. Like Carlson has a better two-way game, but I don't care about that with my number one center. And McTavish, he's also whenever in the corners and stuff, he's ferocious. I love watching.
Well,
him play.
He's a big guy, right? So I think that helps. He's such a big guy. It's hard to knock him off the puck too. That's kind of
the fact they had him on the third line sometimes was criminal. Like again
crime.
For development,
that's a fucking crime.
Yeah. And I think again, with under Quenneville's system, which is more offensive friendly generally, I think with the young guys on this team, who, unlike San Jose, where like Dickinson, Misa, some of these guys might be a little bit longer away. Some of these guys are at the age where they have to start showing something a bit more. And again, and the defense projects to be better as well. That's why I had this team fourth, just because there's more options. Like unlike Seattle and Calgary, there's more options for this team to hit a ceiling. Like, there's more options for this team to have upside and grow. Again, you talk about the coaching upgrade, you talk about the young guys on the roster, you talk about the additions. And honestly, even in net, like, Dostal was good last year. And granted, Gibson's, trading Gibson and having Mrazek's a slight downgrade, but having Dostal play X amount of games, if the defense is improved, should be good enough. Like, I think this team, I don't think this team's a playoff team. Frankly, I don't think they have enough offense as of yet. But I do think they're better than that Seattle, Calgary, San Jose contingent, for sure.
Well, they also just have again, I'm going to say this, they also just have a better prospect pool, and there's at least more younger guys that can hit, and then just, this team's ceiling goes up, right? Like, we didn't even talk about, like, Beckett Seneke, right? Like, we didn't even talk about him. He, like, if he challenges for a spot out of camp, too, and if he comes out guns blazing, then at least that's another thing you have figured out with this team, right? There's just so many more, I guess, young guys with potential on this team, and this team just has also a lot more like higher ceiling pieces as a whole compared to those other two teams.
They're kind of the opposite of the Kraken. Where I like the Kraken's wing players in a decent amount, but I don't like their centers. I like the centers on this team. The wings are what gives me question, because outside of Terry, again, Gauthier was. I know bigger players at wing take time. Gauthier didn't look great for me last year, and
he wasn't good.
Kreider's kind of strictly a power play guy at this point in his career. Kaloran's okay, but really it's just Terry and a bunch of something else. So,
and that's why I'm saying again, Seneke's gonna get that chance. He's gonna get that chance if this is the guys you're competing with.
Yeah. My X factor for this team is Mason McTavish. One, do they sign him? Which they should. Two, I think, I said, I think personally he's the number one center on this roster, unless Carlson takes a massive leap.
Well, I think the thing with the number one center too is you want to be more involved, right? He also just shoots more. Carlson doesn't shoot enough for me. That's the thing I hate about it. Like I had him in fantasy 2 years ago, so I think I can speak to this a bit more. He didn't shoot enough when I had him then. He didn't shoot enough when I didn't have him last year, because I was looking at him last year out of curiosity.
But it's not the shooting. When you watch him play, he's not even like, he's an okay playmaker, but he's not. He doesn't have the passing vision that like you want a number one center to have. Whereas McTavish definitely, again,
McTavish has it in spurts. Like he has it in spurts, though. I've noticed. Like,
exactly.
He doesn't always have it, but like it's better to have it in spurts than to just not have it at all. So
I just kind of want to see what McTavish looks like with proper deployment. Same with Carlson to an extent too. Like all these guys, I just want to see what it looks like. But I think the reason I have McTavish, because I think for them to be fourth or higher in this division, McTavish has to work out. Whereas like with the defensemen, it's kind of like between Zellweger, Lacombe, and Minchikov. It could be any of them. We don't know, right? So for me, I had McTavish. I don't know who you had, but
well, I had McTavish because I think my argument is it's kind of similar to the argument that we made with like San Jose, right? Like you have your goalie, and at least in this case, in the case of the Ducks, they have their goalie situation figured out. Like Dostal looks like your guy of the future, right? So that's done. You have your number one goalie sorted out. Now you have to figure out, do you have that number one D-man? Do you have that number one center? Now, if you figure out McTavish, then the D1 is a little bit easier to figure out, because you just hope that out of one of the three, Zellweger, Lacombe, or Minchikov, one of them works out. And like I assume, okay, if somehow the worst case scenario happens where all three of them whiff, then that happens. But I have to think one of those three guys takes the D. So I almost want to say the Ducks have two of those ones sorted out, sort of, in a way. Like, they just need to figure out, do they have that number one center? Like, and if it isn't McTavish, then, like, they're going to hope it's, I think, that Roger McQueen guy. I think that's the only other guy I can see.
Lightning McQueen himself, baby.
Lightning McQueen himself, exactly. Which, again, I thought that was kind of cool at the draft. But so they need to figure out if they have that number one center. And at least McTavish has shown in flashes that he has it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, all these teams their cup probabilities, all four, are 1 out of 10. And like, I don't think any of these teams have a shot at winning the cup.
Well, I was gonna say the Sharks is like probably closer to a 0 out of 10, but
sure.
Then the rest of them
1 out of 10. And the only way these teams will make the Stanley Cup Finals is if every other team gets the measles. That's it.
Yeah, you mean just like in the Mighty Ducks movie when the team ahead of them got the measles and they snuck into the playoffs?
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever it was. Sorry, I had to make that reference because it was the perfect timing too, because of the way you said measles.
100%. No, that's the only way I see it happening. Like, so yeah, all these teams are kind of in that same tier. To me, you can pick however you want to slot them. I think the Ducks are the Ducks for me a little bit more firmly ahead of the other three. But if you told me Seattle finished last ahead of below San Jose, I wouldn't be surprised. So, all right, moving on to the fourth place team. I'm curious who you had because I had LA.
I had LA too, and I think my thing with this LA team is they made a ton of moves, but they didn't make any moves that addressed their core issues, and that's kind of the issue I have with this team. Like, their issue has always been their scoring. Like, they're a really good defensive team. Yeah. They play really good defensive hockey, but they can't score to save their life, and all their moves are like kind of like depth signings, right? Like, Corey Perry's kind of to fill up your depth. I think a lot of their they added Cody Cece's kind of like a fifth, sixth defenseman. They kind of filled out the what's the right term? Like, they filled out the edges, but not internally, kind of.
Well, I think even then there's a bit of an issue, right? So if you look at all of LA's numbers, they profile the same. First of all, can I say, if you're talking about a team that profiles the same they do every year, it's LA. Like, you can go through the years. Granted, there's some deviation into where they finish. It's kind of the same thing. Like, you look at this team, right? Goals against, they're second in the league, right? Shots against, they're second in the league. Penalty kill, they're eighth. Penalty kill, they're one of the top teams in the league. I believe they were eighth. Let me double check. Yeah, eighth in the league. Expected goals against, second in the league. High danger chances against,
21st.
Fourth in the league.
Oh, sorry, expected goals. Sorry, I think expected goals for. My bad. Expected goals.
They're really good at that. But the problem, and Grant, don't get me wrong, a lot of it, it's not just on the defensive end, it's the offensive end as well, because Philippe Danault, Trevor Moore, Anze Kopitar, Kevin Fiala to a lesser extent when he's not playing passive, are all quality, like, defensive players as well. Like, Fiala's definitely improved since he left Minnesota from a defensive side. And Fogle too. Fogle's been a solid defensive player as well. But there's a couple issues with that even then. One, Gavrikov was one of the best defensive defensemen in the league last year, and he's not here anymore. Two, Jordan Spence was a good second, third pairing defensive defenseman. He's not there anymore. And you're replacing him with Dumoulin and Ceci, who are clear defensive downgrades, right? So now, again, and the thing with defense versus offense is offense can usually be ascribed to a couple star players on a team generally. Again, look at the Oilers, look at the Avs, right? And unless those players get hurt, that generally doesn't go away. Defense, if the margins start to chip away, that can drop, because defense, again, it's more of a team thing, right? To an extent. And losing two good defensive players and replacing them with Cody Ceci, who's traditionally one of the worst defenders in the league, and Dumoulin, who's not to those guys' level either. It's like, that's a downgrade there. And the other thing you have to factor in is there is the potential for regression in age, which we don't have with some of the other teams in the division, where it's Anze Kopitar's last year. We already know that now. That's been confirmed. He's
retiring at the end of this year,
like,
which is a little.
Danault's older, Moore's older, Doughty's older. Darcy Kemp, their goalies are both old. Like, between Darcy Kemp, well, Anton Forsberg, surprisingly old for what you think he is. I think is Anton Forsberg like 30? He's almost 30, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say too, the only young guys on this team are essentially Byfield, who I think it's what Byfield and Kempe,
And
but
Brant
Kempe's
Clark.
like Grant Clark, but Kempe's a pending UFA, and Clark
Yeah.
for some reason LA seems to be intent on healthy scratching him more than actually playing him. I don't understand that. Anyways, so like if you're not gonna play your young guys that much, you're not gonna play the young guys you do have, or the ones that you do have are about to either leave or you hope they figure it out. Like a lot of this is gonna rest on the older guys, and like you can't with the older guys they did add, it doesn't do enough to push the needle for me.
Well, my problem is if compared to last year, where last year they finished second, it's like the defense was really good, but the defense lost guys. The offense didn't do enough to supplement. Now Corey Perry's going to be out for a bit too, which is one of the guys you tried
But
to
even
add
then,
to
like Corey Perry
supplement.
wasn't gonna push the needle that much though, right? Like
For
wasn't
sure.
even.
But it's just one of those things where if you're talking about the defense taking a step back, Kemper was really good last year, but again,
just being the same.
Yeah, exactly. We do. If you talk about the offense maybe being the same, slightly worse, you're talking about the defense being worse, and again, the issues with Kemper's age.
Well, I was gonna say if the
and
defense gets worse, Kemper has to get a little bit worse probably too by
yeah,
default, right? So and then if his age also builds into it too, then he gets
catches
even
up
worse.
to him. Yeah, exactly. And then you're also talking about like again with some of the guys we mentioned, the potential for regression. I don't think again. Could this team be a playoff team? Yeah, like the defense should, in theory, give you a decent enough floor. But I wouldn't be surprised if this team missed the playoffs because a fifth team in the Central was better. I just don't see them reaching the heights they did last year, and that's not even including what happens when Kopitar
You say the heights of last year, man, losing the first round to the Oilers for the
They finished
umpteenth
second in the
time.
Pacific, though.
I know, but
There's
it's just
something
like,
to
yo,
that, right?
if that's their height, man, that's depressing.
And if and here's the thing, like I mean, there could be a more depressing offseason where if when Kopitar retires and they don't have anybody to fill that, that's a way worse scenario. So like it could be worse. But for now, I just have this team fourth because I just don't.
It will be worse. Unless they get McDavid, that is, but I'm not betting on that. But it will be worse, essentially.
But yeah, I just don't see enough there offensively. Again, I think the defense gives them a safe floor to finish fourth, and I just think they're at least better substantially than the rest. I think the rest of this division. Again, would it stun me if the Ducks randomly hit their like 100th percentile outcome and like finished ahead? No, like it wouldn't shock me. But right now, I just think the floor of this team is fourth, and I don't see them. I see a fallback from last year, and I'm just so down on this team, to be honest. I'm just so.
No, I feel with you. Again, like they're an older team that doesn't have a lot of like superstar talent. And then again, like you said, the margins have been chipped at for a bit. So if their defense gets worse, their offense kind of stays the same. And Kemper is going to get worse if the defense gets worse by default. Again, to me it signals that they're going to have a drop, like they're going to drop in points. And if they're going to drop in points, they're not going to be a second place team like last year. They're going to be like a third or most likely fourth, right? And for X Factor, would you say Quentin Byfield?
It has to be. No, not only for this year, for this franchise's future. Like, I hope at some point, like, okay, first of all, those Ken Holland signings, if he doesn't have a plan and Kopitar's retiring, those signings age so much worse. Because what was the point of signing all those vets if current Quentin Byfield is going to be your number one center next year?
Yeah, and if Byfield doesn't hit that outcome because Byfield is a top 2 pick, right? If he doesn't hit that kind of outcome that you expect out of a top 2 pick, and he's not like a capable first line center, like I don't want to say this feels like another Seattle Kraken situation, but it's kind of slowly becoming that way, right? Like if Kempe leaves,
Byfield has to be the X factor because if he doesn't hit what he's supposed to be, where when you drafted him number 2 overall, you thought he was going to be a franchise center or franchise wing. If he doesn't hit that scenario, at least, especially the center part in this case, if you're going into him next year as your number 1 center, like you might be the worst, like that might be the worst. And if Kempe leaves, that's the worst forward core in the league.
And you know what's bad if yours is worse than the Kraken worse than the Kraken, and that says something, right?
No,
Because I said before, this team feels like it's going to become another Seattle Kraken in a way, right? They have. Like their decor is okay enough, although it's getting chipped at the edges. Their goaltending is fine, and their offense, like they don't really have because like once Kopitar leaves and Kempe leaves, it feels like this team kind of just has one second line and like like a third line, and a fourth line.
If
right?
you look at this roster, though, it's not even just the I mean, that is a factor with Kopitar and Kempe both potentially leaving in the same offseason. But if you look at the rest of this roster, man, it's just there's so much potential regression. If you're talking about, like I said, like I mean, Philippe Danault's 32, right? He has 2 more years left. I mean, Doughty's 35, Dumoulin's 34, Cece's 31. Like this is Joel Edmondson's 32. Anton Forsberg's 32. This isn't a young team. Like if Brent Clark and Quinn Byfield need to start becoming franchise players sooner rather than later, because otherwise, and also Kuzmenko could leave.
At least in Clark's case, the Kings got to at least trust him a bit more, because he can't be your franchise player when he's sitting in the fucking press box.
For sure. No, I do think hopefully that this year they kind of give him more responsibility, but like their UFAs again, Kopitar's retiring because he's a UFA after this year, but like Kuzmenko, Kempe, if they both leave, like what is this roster? I am so down on this team because to me they're not a good enough contender now. Like their cup rating to me is like 3 out of 10, but I like that's just me being generous because I don't see this team just doesn't have the offense to go anywhere. And
well, hey,
they're
man,
again
the good news is maybe they don't hit the Oilers in the first round again this year.
Oh yeah, because Vegas is so much better. Yeah,
I know, but I think that's a joke, right? Because like apparently,
yeah, no, for sure. It's I see people say that like this year maybe the Kings won't hit the Oilers because they'll finish 4th. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. So you can lose in 5 to Vegas, and then what? And then next year you're the Kraken, but worse somehow.
Man,
or maybe they beat the Flames, but worse.
Well, I mean, the Kraken and the Flames are kind of similar-ish, right?
Yeah,
so, like,
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, you can kind of either or, but it's like if you're worse than one of those two, and with how bad both of those two look this year, like, oh god, that's not.
This is why, man, I feel like I could just talk at all, like on and on about the Kings mismatch, and then signing. Like again, there has to be a coup for this team, like because I just don't see it, and I don't see it now because the offense it's still an issue, and like Kopitar's still good relative, but you can tell he gets by a lot on like muscle memory and IQ versus like the physical skills.
Also, you ever noticed with Kopitar too is he just doesn't shoot anymore either. I don't know if you've noticed that. Like his shots have just substantially like decreased to the point where he's like it feels like in the offensive side he's not even as involved as he was before.
The thing is too, weirdly, there's not a lot of elite like athleticism on this team either. I mean, Byfield has the potential, but he hasn't like harnessed it yet. And the rest of the guys, it's very skill oriented, but there's not a lot of like elite athleticism. Like Danault's again, and I'll say it's good for his age, but relative, like even he's kind of taken like a step back relative to like 2 years ago even. So I don't know, man. It's going to be tough for this team. It's just, again, I think you just have to give them the respect, at least for this year, with Kopitar, with Kempe, with with Kemper coming off last year. Like you still give them the gravitas, or like you give them the kudos over the other four teams in this division.
Essentially, yeah. And then like that next year, they're going to be in that. If the worst case happens, they're going to be in that Seattle Calgary realm. But at least those guys have prospects coming up. So.
All right, moving on to who did you have at 3? Because I think this is where we might differ here.
Yeah, so I had the Canucks here at 3. I think you probably had the Oilers at 3 is probably my guess. If you're asking if we differ, I'm gonna guess you probably had the Oilers at 3. So
no. So I had the Canucks at 3 too.
Oh, really? I thought maybe you'd aim higher with them. Okay, because
I am pretty high on the Oilers from a regular season standpoint this year, actually.
Really, even with Skinner and Ned.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. That is the one thing that scared the fuck out of me. Yeah.
So the Canucks to me were last year's. Bill Simmons has this quote and he uses it frequently. It's the season from hell team, and that every year. Well, Nashville could have been that too, but I think it was more Vancouver, where what could have gone wrong absolutely did go wrong. And if you were talking about like anything that could have gone wrong on this team, it absolutely did. You had Demko out with injuries. Hughes missed some time with injuries. You basically had to trade away one of your centers because of a rift between the team. And then the other one that stayed didn't play well. I mean, and then your coach left in the offseason just because he didn't want to be there anymore. everything that could have gone wrong went wrong with this team. And yet, this team still finished just barely out of a playoff spot, despite all that.
I think this team as a whole was like, in terms of the advanced numbers, they wasn't terrible, right? Like on the defensive side, they were pretty solid. Like they had the third best PK in the league. Their expected goals against, I think, was 7th. It's kind of the offense which kind of sank them, right? Because they were 28th in expected goals for, and that's kind of what killed them. Because like, especially when once they traded JT Miller, who was probably one of their better offensive players, when Pettersson just couldn't find the Elias Pettersson form of 2 years ago, and like even the year before that. I think their offense just kind of sunk there because, like, again, like guys like even a guy like Quinn Hughes can't shoulder that load, like, and they don't have the kind of talent. Like after trading Miller, they don't have the talent to kind of supplement Pettersson having that bad of a year. That's basically what it came down to. Plus Demko not being fully healthy. Although even with Demko not fully healthy,
Lankinen was pretty good. Yeah,
we did a pretty good job
like league average,
given the circumstances. Yeah.
To me, I like this team. There are a couple of reasons. So one. This whole ranking of the Canucks, I'm just going to say this, depends on if you think Pettersson's going to bounce back to his form of 2 years ago. If you do, then honestly, I'll say this. If you think he's going to go back to elite Elias Pettersson, if you're going to walk with Elias, there's an argument this team could finish second in this division. I just have him third because I'm not sure, but I'll lean towards him at least coming closer to that player. But the rest of this roster, honestly, like, it's pretty good.
Well, I was going to say lesser extent Demko too, right? Because if Demko gets back closer to his high
endangered Demko phase,
high endangered Demko phase, exactly. Like that's another boon. Like that, at least in that case, it's like, oh, if this team doesn't score that much, like maybe Demko can kind of pull what Wolf did with the Flames last year and like just bail them out enough that in spite of how bad their offense is, like they can overperform because of like.
Exactly.
Their goaltending, right?
But I look at this team. Like the wing talent is there, right? Besser, hopefully it's back to regular Pettersson because when him and Besser were cooking together, it was a thing to watch. Besser's really good. I think Kane as a second line player, adds like a touch of physicality and someone at a net presence they badly need. I'm a big fan of Garland because I think you can slot him anywhere in the middle six, and he's just a solid player. Everyone's really high on Lekramaki. I can't speak to it, but people like him. And then even the center depth, like Cheadle, and if Pettersson's back to regular Pettersson, him and Cheadle are a good one too. Having Marcus Pettersson to add another offensive presence on the defensive core is massive as well because Hughes shoulders a heavy burden, but being able to have a little bit more of an offensive presence in your bottom two pairings is nice. And again, if Demko's healthy, him and Lankinen are one of the best 1-2s in the league. This roster is solid. It just really depends on how much you think Pettersson's going to bounce back, which is why I had to hedge and have them here at third because I think he's going to bounce back, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be that sulky level 100-point guy. I think he's maybe closer to like 85 with good defense. But that's all they. I don't think that's all they. Yeah, exactly. That's all this team
They just need a point per game guy. He just can't be as bad as he was last year.
100%.
That's the issue. And like you can't be what was he like a 50-point guy essentially, like a 50 point.
Yeah, he was horrible last year. No bones about it. And I think that's why I have them here. Again, if he's the 100-point Pettersson, they could easily, and Demko's back to himself, they could easily finish second in this division. But right now, we have him a third. X factor just has to be Pettersson because this whole franchise right now hinges on whether Elias Pettersson can bounce back to form. Like his numbers,
you paid him 11.5 mil, so like he has to be. He either is center one or he's the worst contract in like one of the worst contracts in hockey.
Yeah, it's the biggest swing, right? But yeah, last year, like again, 2 years before he was 2 years ago, he was not including last year, but like 2022-23, he was top 10 in Selke voting, 1.27 points per game, which is crazy to think about, right? And even the year before, 1.09 points per game. Granted, not as high in the Selke voting, but still like a really good player. And last year, he was 0.7 points per game, right? And it's like, you can't have that. But this team's a playoff team if he gets back to point per game. Like, if he's anything above that, this team's on another level right now. The only other thing I'm curious about is, because again, Rick Tocchet plays a very low event hockey style. I'm curious because we have no knowledge of what Adam Foote's system is going to look like. If you remember Adam Foote from when he was a player, very defensive defenseman. So I'm kind of curious, but I just don't want to pigeonhole him like that because we just really don't know, and I don't.
We have nothing to back up what kind of coach he's going to be. Like we don't know.
Like where with Quenneville, we have years of data, right? Lindy Ruff, we have years of data. Like him, we just don't know. So I'm kind of curious. That's another swing thing. Like if he does open it up a bit more, I am curious to see what Cheadle, Hughes, and Pedersen and some guys who thrive a little bit more in open space, like a guy like Besser, Garland as well. I am curious to see how that goes. But again, that's another question mark. But overall, I do think this roster, if Pedersen's right, is still a really good roster, and I'll have them third. I have them third here.
Yeah, I lean third too. I do think they have the potential to finish second if everything goes right. I think if everything goes wrong, do you think they just missed the playoffs again, like last year, kind of? Like, cause like I think
if everything goes wrong, they could be worse. If depending on how the Ducks do, there's possibility.
The reason I say that is because like everything went wrong for them last year, and they just barely missed the playoffs, right? Like maybe like
I think their worst case scenario is fifth, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. But then again, like similar to just missed
the problem is you have Hughes pending free agency a year from now, so it's like you kind of want to be good.
I guess your only way to keep him is if you can convince Jack and Luke to come to Vancouver. I guess, which is probably
just
not
have
happen.
A good team.
Yeah, even then, I don't know, man. New Jersey has a pretty good team themselves, and he wants to play with his brothers. Hey, man.
I think that stuff's overrated. Like just having to fit that contract too would be wonkers. I don't worry about that so much, but like if they're a bad team, I don't see the argument.
Oh, he's getting at it. He's like, yeah, fuck this. I'm not sticking around. Fuck this shit.
If Pedersen's 0.7 point per game, Pedersen, he's gone.
I'd rather play.
Also, honestly, like if he's 0.7 per point per game, Pedersen, I don't even know what you do.
Wait, how much was I guess Huberdeau's pace last year? Well, how much is Huberdeau's pace? Like 62 points in 81 games. How much is that? Is that like 0.7 similar range? The numbers aren't hitting me right off the top of the head. 62 out of 81. Okay, 0.76. Oh, geez, it's even. Okay, so he's 0.7. That's like worse than Huberdeau pace. Oh,
worse than Huberdeau. So there's a potential it could be worst contract in the league. But cup rating, I have them as a 5. It's what breaks which way, right? If this team stays healthy, if Pedersen sways, like this team could be again. This team was a second round, took Edmonton to 7, as sloppy as it looked, a couple of years ago. Like this team could be it. Like this team could be a second round playoff team. So that's why I have to have them at 5 because there's too many swing factors.
Do you remember that year when they took Edmonton to 7? Like I remember seeing so many comments. It's like if Elias Pettersson did anything for us in that series, we would have won that series. Yeah. I feel like I feel like those comments kind of.
I also think my hot take. I think Rick Tocchet's system has a ceiling in the playoffs as well.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, low event hockey just typically it works better during the regular season.
It doesn't work against teams like Edmonton, where like to me the problem with low event hockey is it doesn't work against teams with really good offensive talent because they'll take advantage of those. Like they'll take advantage of the possession, basically, right? And you're giving better players. It can work over 82 games because you're just going to run into teams with lesser talent. Ideally,
you're not going to play. You're not playing Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl 82 games of the year, but when you're playing them in the playoffs for a 7-game series, that's a completely different story because you're not you have to find a way to shut those guys down. And frankly, I don't think a lot of teams have found a way to shut those two down, for example. So
and teams can make adjustments to teams that play low event hockey. Like Florida does this amazingly. Granted, Florida's their own exception to the rule on everything, but for teams that play low event hockey, Florida will forecheck the fuck out of you. And force you to basically start to open up. And then that's when they take advantage of you. And Knobloch made those adjustments in that series. So I'm kind of curious to see what Adam Foote does. But overall, I think this team is the third best team in the Pacific if Pettersson comes back to form. So number 2, we have Edmonton. My hot take, I like this team in the regular season. I do.
I think my hot take, my not on their hot take. My take is I like everything about the team except their fucking goaltending.
Their wings aren't good either. Let's be fair.
Yeah, but you can the wing part I can live with when you have two of the best 5 forwards in the league. You can always
for sure
that. The problem is the goaltending you don't have the best defensive core in the league to back up your goaltending or help that.
I'll say this. So if you look at Edmonton's numbers last year, they were actually pretty good defensively, and they didn't lose a lot.
Yeah, they were 11th in expected goals against, right? So they weren't. Yeah. They were just outside the top 10 in expected goals against. I think even high danger chances against, they weren't actually that bad either. I think they were a top 10 team in high danger chances against.
So and they're 14th in goals against, and their penalty kill. Their penalty kill wasn't amazing last year.
Middle of the league. It's middle. It's average.
Yeah, 60.
It's literally 60. It's literally
yeah.
average. Yeah.
So my thing with Edmonton is I think I like okay. So to me, I'm not a big Nurse guy, but like the Ekholm, Bouchard, Wallman is a good trio because they do different. So Ekholm, so there are a couple question marks. Let's start with the defensive side because we'll kind of just go into that. Ekholm's a big if because pre-injury, Ekholm was a really good defensive and the perfect partner for Bouchard, who doesn't make a ton of gaffes, but when he does, they're monumentally bad. But Ekholm's a good cover partner for him, and I am curious to see which version of Ekholm we get post-injuries, what he looks like. And again, older player, right? That's a factor as well. I do think Wallman's a good supplementary second offensive defenseman. Because I think he was a little bit miscast in San Jose because he had to be the number one guy because there was nobody else.
He had to be the guy, right? Out of necessity.
But I think for him, playing that second pairing offensive defenseman role is great. Weirdly, I don't know if he works with Nurse as well as Kulak because I think Kulak covers for him a little bit better. But then you can't have Nurse playing third pairing defense, right? So I'm not sure how that's I'm not sure how that's going to work. But overall, I do think the D pairings are decent for this team. Like, is there an issue if Ekholm doesn't come back to form? Yes. I'm going to err on the side that he does, hopefully. And if he does, I do like the Ekholm, Bouchard, Wallman, Kulak. Like, that's a solid 4. And they each have the perfect contrast for each other. And worst case, Darnell Nurse can just eat a bunch of minutes wherever the heck, who knows, right? But I do like how these guys like cover for each other. I do think it's a quality 4. The issue to me would be if Ekholm doesn't come back to form, because then if Kulak's your best defensive defenseman, that is a problem. That's the only thing.
And you're pushing him much further higher up the lineup than he should be, right? And that's gonna
right.
And you're also taking a guy out of your bottom six like our top 4 essentially that. And now you have another hole to fill, right? Because unless Ekholm fills that, I guess the bottom 6. I assume he should be at least at bottom 6 defenseman at worst. Like if he doesn't come back that well post injury, but like even then, like it'd be much better if Ekholm is that guy, and then like you can just leave Kulak.
And you need his type of player for Bouchard because, like I said, Bouchard will make those errors, and sometimes they're mitigated by Ekman's positioning. Ekholm, sorry, not Ekholm. Ekholm's positioning is really good. Like He's not one of those guys who's like a flashy, he's not Scott Stevens, right? He's not one of those flashy defensemen.
Not lay the boom,
His positioning is so good. And I do kind of and I do think they don't have that replacement on the roster. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And if I were them, like I'd ease him back as much as possible because you don't care about what the early parts of the season look like, really. Like, a lot of this team is going to be basically a tryout outside of the set roster, guys. Like, you look at the forwards, it's all tryout. Hyman comes back, he's going to occupy a first-line slot next to McDavid because Hyman's out for 2 months or 1 month. I think he's back in November.
1 month he's basically back in November, yeah. So, like, the wings are basically Mangiapane, Podkolzin, and Kapanen, and then they have
Kapanen, Savoy, Howard. It's going to be, like, we don't know who's going to line up on the wings alongside McDavid and Draisaitl. Like, we have no idea. Nobody knows. But
the one thing know about McDavid, Draisaitl is they'll carry you'll be okay with those two, I think.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, McDavid will he basically made Zach Hyman the NHL version of Clint Capella, where if you remember Hyman's breakout, quote-unquote, breakout year from a couple years ago is basically all pucks around the net, like everything within the front of the net, basically. And like McDavid can do that.
Everything within 6 feet, yeah.
Capella got exactly. McDavid can do that, and Draisaitl can to a lesser extent. So I'm not worried about the wings because I think they're just going to figure out what works. Like it could be Isaac Howard, it could be Matt Savoy. Again, Hyman for sure will end up taking his slot back. It's just a question of where these other guys will rotate. And yeah, it might be a little bit slow to start the year. But Draisaitl and McDavid are good enough to figure it out. The interesting thing is RNH playing third-line center. Because if he's going to stay at third-line center, that's like the most overqualified third-line center you can have. frankly.
Because he's played on the wing for most of his like I guess most of the last few seasons, and I do wonder with how much they're like with their wingers and the lack of wing depth. I do wonder if at some point they do just put him back on the wing out of necessity.
But the only issue is then what? Like, are your last two centers going to be Henrique and Frederick? Because that's going to be an issue too, in a way, right? Because now you're putting a bigger burden. I think part of the reason you moved
Frederick less to an extent, right? Because he's your fourth line. I mean, also you paid him a ton of money. Hopefully he's not your fourth line center. But if he's like your third line center, then like at least it's fine. Henrique as a fourth might be an issue. That might be it. I don't know, but it's not as bad as an issue as the wings they have right now. Because again,
sure.
Kapanen on your second line and Tom.
I do think if RNH isn't on your third line though as a center, now you have a real like. You're putting so much pressure on McDavid, Draisaitl. Granted, you'll have RNH probably on one of the like lines as a wing, but if he doesn't work out as third line center, there's a huge issue with like where the rest of the offense is going to come from after those top two lines. Now you can say, hey, the Oilers made a cup final with that problem, and it's fine. But like you'd ideally like to parse things around a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think that my point is like because they were able to get away with it last year. Like I'm not saying they can get away with it again this year, but at least it's possible for them to get away with it
for sure.
again.
Yeah, I just think basically like I just trust the infrastructure of McDavid and Draisaitl enough offensively, which tells you what I think of them as players. That like everything else could be not figured out, and I'm okay with it going into the season.
And speaking of not figured out, it's their goaltending. That's the one that scares me. Although
that's the last thing, right?
I have to think, like, I know there's been a lot of talks about how I think Skinner mentioned he lost a ton of weight. Maybe like it helps with his movement. I don't know if he at least like has slightly
okay. Can
better
I
numbers.
say this? I'm just gonna rant about this once, and I do apologize. I am tired of pro athletes talking about getting in better shape during a season. Unless you're 18 or 19 and it's the first time you've been in NHL level weight room and strength training program. No, look. Your job is professional athlete. Your job is to be in shape. It's to perform obviously at the highest ability you can.
At least in Skinner's case, I'll counter argue by saying if he's played at a certain weight for his whole like thing, like maybe he's like, oh, maybe I move a bit better if I have less weight. I mean, that's not a bad. That's different versus coming into like camp overweight and out of shape.
No, but like part of it was also he was talking about dieting and stuff like that. It's like, hey, you're
the dieting part fair.
That's your job.
Yeah. But I think my argument is, at least if you're talking about it from the movement standpoint and the, maybe like it'll help me like be a little bit more like agile. Like that's different, right? Because you're used to playing at, like I said, if you're used to playing at one weight in your whole career, it's a little bit different.
But how have you not figured that out?
Well, sometimes you don't. Well, I mean, sometimes you just. A lot of times with goalies, I think it's a lot of the mechanical issues they're trying to figure out, right? Like the side to side movement, where their glove hand is positioned. Like, it's a lot of times with goalies, it's the mechanical stuff they're trying to fix, right?
I don't know, but maybe logically, if it's, I feel slow that I'm not moving laterally or I'm not agile enough. Well, if I feel slow, I should probably drop weight. Ergo, I should focus more on my fitness. But here's the thing, what I don't understand is like, you're a pro athlete. That is your job. It's like it's like you go to an accountant and they don't know the tax code. Like, what are we talking about? Also, goaltenders burn a bunch of calories. Like if you look at a lot of goaltenders
too, if you're burning a lot of calories during the game, is it really good to be like is it really good to like already to lose that much weight he did before the start of the year? I don't know. Again,
I don't know. It's just I don't trust when I hear like stuff like this because it's like, hey, I have to wait to see it. I'm not just gonna take your word for it. Especially someone with the track record of Skinner.
I don't think Skinner can be as bad as he was last year. So like if he even like improves a little bit, like this team has better trajectory. Dude,
are you sure he can't be as bad as he was last year? Are you sure about that?
He can't be that much, bro. He was bad last year. Like you can't. He's not gonna get the Fedotov. He's not gonna be Fedotov.
Okay, yeah, he's not 896 save percentage. Okay, fair enough.
Like he's not gonna be Fedotov kind of bad. Like in like worst case scenario, he's either the exact same, which I mean it could happen, but like I assume at some point they'll just go to pick card and just hope that. Like, I don't think they'll stick with him.
I don't give Edmonton any excuse for goaltending because you can't. Everyone can talk about like the only argument you can make is
they had a chance to get Gibson. They had a chance to get Gibson. They passed on that. Like, if you at least gotten Gibson, I was like, okay, fine. At least you tried to improve it.
Look at the last 2 years of goalies that have moved teams. It's not. We can talk about Gibson, but like Talbot
Thompson
would have been an upgrade. Kemper would have been an upgrade. Logan Thompson would have been an upgrade. Mac Blackwood would have been an upgrade. Granted, Calgary wasn't going to trade Markstrom, but like hypothetically, if that scenario were to apply, would have been an upgrade. Kevin Lankinen would have been an upgrade. Now, again, you should go this offseason. John Gibson would have been an upgrade. And it's like, they don't even try, and that's my issue. Like, okay, look, am I saying Carter Hart's the savior in Edmonton? No. But to have this goaltending situation and not even consider at least trying him, like, thinking about it is crazy to me.
With the Carter Hart one, I'll counter by saying that there's a lot of rumors coming around that he doesn't want to play in Canada. So if that's the case, then like,
okay,
if you're
fair
the
enough.
Oilers, you don't really have an option. If he's like, no, I don't want to come. If you asked him like, hey, like if we throw you a contract, would you take it? He's like, well, I don't want to play in Canada. It's kind of sad because he's actually from the area basically too.
He's from Spruce Grove, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he's from Alberta. He's in the same province essentially. So it's sad that he doesn't want to.
But not even Carter Hart. But like also I forgot Stolars. Like the Leafs signed Stolars for basically nothing, and it's like there's been options every offseason, and it's like they just keep passing because I think I don't know if they're waiting for the perfect solution, but, you know, there's a saying, perfection sometimes is the enemy of good, right? And it's like, they keep passing on all these guys to the point where I just have to assume that they're fine with Skinner and Picard, which I don't understand because I don't know how you can go into Connor McDavid's free agency year with this much uncertainty in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Skinner and Picard have been 65th and 93rd out of 103 goalies that played at least one game in terms of goal saved above expected. Like, they've just not been good. And at some point, you have to try something else.
And if you're talking about the year to make this work, like, this is the year to go all out. Ekholm's a free agent.
They've made the finals in spite of having those two as their goalies the last 2 years. You'd have to think if they at least, like, if they got, like, for example, a Stolars. I'm not going to say they would have won the cup, but, like, fuck, man, they damn as well.
Yeah, they're one game away one year, and like, yeah. Like, well, you look at it like this is the year. McDavid's this team's also older too. Like McDavid's obviously we know about his free. We don't even talk about that as much. But Ekholm's a free agent. Wallman's a free agent after this year. Kulak's a free agent. That's 3 of your D-core members that are free agents after this year. Both Skinner and Picard are free agents after this year. Like this entire team is basically feels like it was all in the last 3 years, especially last year felt like the real all in year. This year's like we're still all in, but we just don't have the same like guys. But this is another all in year, and to have again when all these options were there, to just have Skinner and Picard as the two again, when you saw them rear their ugly heads, more so, especially Skinner. In the playoffs, it's just, to me, it's like negligence almost in a way. Not only that, like, let's not remember, granted, again, Spencer Knight was in the Seth Jones trade, but like, again, another guy that got moved, right? And it's just like, how many goalies have to move before you're like, hey, why aren't we trading for anyone?
Also, I could have thought maybe they could have thrown a first. They could have maybe just like thrown a first for Knight or something like that. Because like, again, your first round pick isn't going to be that valuable, like, if you're a playoff team, right? It's like, why not?
Yeah, granted, do I know if Florida would have traded Knight? Probably not. But it's just the guys, it's the volume of guys that are available that just makes this example, right? And it's just
it's also the lack. I think for you, it's more the lack of attempt to make a move. If they at least attempted to make moves and they just got outbid, like you can't do anything about that, right? Like you got outbid. Like what can you do? It's the fact they haven't tried to make the move is what bothers you more.
Yeah, and like all these teams that have done it have found their solutions to an extent, right? I don't know what Gibson's going to look like in Detroit, but Blackwood's the solution for Colorado right now. Gustafsson, solution for Minnesota. Like all these moves have Thompson in Washington. All these moves have
Stolars and Wall are the solution in Toronto. Like it's
right,
the 1A, 1B.
It's all created and something, whereas it hasn't, and it's just for me it feels like there hasn't even been an effort, and like I just don't understand it. And to me, that's the biggest. It's the reason why, like the goaltending and the having to figure out the basically every roster spot except McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman when he comes back is why I would have debated having this team at 3. But I just trust that infrastructure too much to like put them below. But this team is definitely has a lot of question marks outside of their main guys. And I am curious to see how this all matriculates as the as the regular season comes along. Because I feel like the first 40 games almost might be a feel-out process for this team.
I think it's going to be, right, because I think at some point too, maybe I hope maybe they finally realize that if Skinner and Picard aren't working, maybe they finally make a move for a goalie, or at least
But
like some sort of
who would
upgrade.
it be?
Well, I mean that's the question, right? Who, like, what team falls out of the playoff race and has a goalie on an expiring contract that's like worth at least moving? Because I have to think that there's, apart from like a Fedot, like, for example, Fedotov recently got moved to Columbus. That was kind
But
of,
that's just rearranging deck chairs on the time.
No, that's worse. But I mean, that's worse, for example. But my point is, like, there has to be someone better by that point. Like,
because here's my thing. If the only name that pops into my head as a tradable target, and this can obviously change, right, is Jeremy Swayman. But if Swayman's so bad that Boston's willing to move him, that's something you have to take a chance on, that he regains form potentially. Because if he's good, Boston's just going to keep him.
Also, he comes with a big contract too, and you have to find a way to fit the numbers with that too.
So there's assets you might have to move as well. Plus, again, if Boston's trading him, you're buying him because he hasn't been good throughout this year as well, right? So, but like, I can't really think of a goalie that would be available, because like, you think about it, Seattle, Decord's relatively young. I think he's 27, 28, but he's again, relatively speaking. Wolf is young. Obviously, the Ducks aren't trading Dostal. Like, you think about the
also,
the
if you're the Flames, you're not trading Wolf to fucking Edmonton of all teams.
100%. Yeah,
trade your best goalie to your rivals.
The Pacific outside of Edmonton weirdly has like a pretty solid crop of goalies, but none of them are going to trade them to Edmonton. So it's like, I don't know where. I'm trying to think of a team that would just have a goalie for trade, and I can't think of one. To be honest,
you think they try to snag UPL off Buffalo or something at some point? I don't know.
UPL's hurt though.
He's hurt, but like I assume he'll be healthy at some point. Like, you can't tell me he's hurt.
I don't even know that, but that's another. He's a question mark. Like, if you passed on all these other guys,
a better question mark than Stuart Skinner. That's for sure. I'd rather take a chance on that than Stuart Skinner.
Man, I just don't know why you would make that trade. Like, to me, if you're making a trade again, Gibson would have made all the sense in the world. Maybe they take a chance on Connor Ingram because he's waived by Utah, but like, outside of that, I don't know. And it sucks because, again, like, to me, for the McDavid year, this is the McDavid year in a way. You kind of have to go all out, because if he goes into the season without a contract, again, I always say this: what's the argument for him to not test out free agency? And then, then you're bidding. Then you're up against everybody.
Also, if you're McDavid too, you're probably looking at this as like, I've been with this team for so long, and like I've kind of had to put this team on my back every single. Like, my GM hasn't done anything to like help, because I feel like every time with all the Edmonton teams I've found, there's always been like at least one glaring issue, and like the GM has just never addressed it. Right, and it's mainly been goaltending mostly, but like there was a few years prior where like their defense wasn't that great either, right? And it felt like, McDavid, Draisaitl had to like score like 3-4 goals between them just for that team to have a chance, right? If I'm McDavid, I'm like, well, if my management's not going to help give me the best chance to win, like maybe I'll find a team elsewhere that has a better GM and will put pieces around me and get me that cup.
And like, Edmonton's had some gifts. I know people talk about some of the negatives, but like, Evander Kane, getting him the way they did was a gift. Like, that doesn't happen to 99% of situations, right? Like, that was, and then
also trading him for what they did was probably also a gift.
Like, giving up no assets to basically get a point per game guy was a gift. And getting the contract you got.
Also, giving up no assets to trade him and get out of his contract now is also a gift.
Yeah.
Technically, too. So
exactly. But yeah, my X factor for this team, I know you're probably going to say Skinner. I'm going to say it's RNH. I think he's the X factor for this team, because where he slots in has a real...
I was debating leaning towards Ekholm, actually. Just because, like, if that decor falls apart, it's even worse.
Yeah. That's a good point, too. Man, there's a lot.
I think it's RNH or Ekholm, right? Because if RNH is a good third center, then like at least 1, 2, 3 is figured out for Edmonton. If Ekholm's not, like, if Ekholm is there is a good deep pairing, if he's still as good as he was prior to the injury, like at least Bouchard can freely kind of play his game. And
you know what? No, I'll go with you, because my argument for RNH was, if he's your third line center, your center depth's really good, but the wings are a work in progress. But if you have to move him to the wing because he's not working at center, I don't really know about Henrique and Frederick as 3-4 or however you slot them, but at least that's workable. If Ekholm's not what he was,
there's nothing.
Man, I don't. That's okay. Cool. I'll say this: X Factor. Yeah, X Factor's Ekholm for sure. I think you can figure out your third line center a lot better than you can figure out your number one defensive D man, because it's not Darnell.
Yeah.
And I'm just penciling the goaltending to be like mediocre at best. I like they're just going with that. I'm just gonna go with it too. Then
I feel like it'd be a blessing if they could get average goaltending. It's a blessing if they get average goaltending somehow.
100%.
Honestly, is
cup rating to me 9 out of 10. This team's made it the 2 years before.
Well, they made it 2 years with this team. Yeah, the worst goaltending possible.
And they have, they have what the only they're the only team with 2 guys that have won multiple Hart trophies, right?
Multiple. Has Draisaitl won multiple?
Yeah, he won one. No, he won. Didn't he win one that 1 year when McDavid got hurt during the lockout year? Not the shortened season.
Are we talking Hart or are we talking Art Ross? Sorry, I'm
Hart.
Sorry, Leon.
He's won 2. I'm 90% sure he's won 2.
I think he's only won 1. He won the one in the COVID year, 2019-20.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, he didn't win this year. My bad, Hellebuck did. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, where did you get the second one from? I was like, I'm not that
Sorry. Okay.
But I mean, still, like, you have 2 guys that have won one before, so close enough.
Are they the only team that has 2 guys that have won a Hart Trophy? No, I'm not talking about, like, one guy won it, like, a decade ago and is on your roster at age 40. I'm talking about, like, 2 guys that have won it during the primes. They're the only team, right?
I think so, because I don't think even the Colorado McKinnon.
Let me think. Matthews has won it, but obviously no one else on Leafs has. McKinnon has, but no one else on the Avs. I think Makar should be in contention for one at some point. And it's kind of, and Kucherov has, but no one else on the Lightning have, right? So
point wouldn't have. Yeah, it is. Okay, they're the only team with multiple Hart winners.
There you go. Yeah, so again, you can't bet against this team in theory. And look, I say this as a Stars fan who's watched Edmonton beat my team.
Yeah, they might also become the team with multiple guys who have won multiple Harts. That could happen soon, theoretically. Yeah, like if Draisaitl that could happen too. But
I thought Draisaitl was winning the Hart last year. That's why in my head I know Hellebuck won, but like it just
okay. But to be fair, Hellebuck's year was crazy. Like I
kind of Mandela affected it in my head in a way. But yeah, like the infrastructure is there, and one of the things they have on this team is continuity. It's the same coach. It's the same core, RNH, Draisaitl, McDavid, Ekholm, Bouchard, Nurse, whatever. Same group of guys. I think this team will be fine. I honestly think, like, I'm a bit higher on this team in the regular season. I just don't know how this depth is going to work in the playoffs necessarily, but I think the team's good enough that, again, second place. I think they could second place despite figuring out.
Just play McDavid and Draisaitl for 30 minutes apiece, and you'll be fine. Apparently, that's probably your best shot.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Moving on to the number 1 team. So we both had Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, we're left with we have one choice, right? So it is Vegas. It is Vegas by default. It's kind of funny because they were the best team in the division last year, right? And I mean, when you add a Selke caliber 100-point player to your lineup in addition,
like,
I have to think you're even better. Like, yes, they did lose some of their depth pieces. Yes, they're going to lose Pietrangelo probably for the rest of his. Like, I think that's probably it for his career at this point. But like, I think they're higher on Caden.
Oh, don't worry, Rasmus Anderson will join them, and all will be okay because it's Vegas.
Yeah. I think Vegas as a whole, like, I think they are the most. It seems like they're the most well-rounded team in this division out of like all the teams, right? Like, you look at expected goals for, I think they were second in expected goals for, 9th in expected goals against. They had the second best power play. That was interesting because I thought maybe the Oilers would have had the best power play in this division, but they finished 12th, I think, last year in power play percentage.
Yeah.
But then their PK, I guess, was what surprised me. They were 26th. I don't think Vegas is a 26th ranked PK team. Especially if you're gonna add Marner to that, it's probably gonna get better. So this team as a whole just feels very balanced, and like I can't really poke too many holes. Like, you might have
their center depth is crazy good. Like, Eichel, Hurdle, Carlson is just
Carlson is overqualified as a third line center. Eichel's a good first line center, and Hurdle's like, I think, just the perfect second line. He's actually the perfect second
line. And
their
wing depth too. Like, they have Dorofeyev, Smith, Stone, Marner, Barbashev.
Well, no, I was gonna say their right wing depth is definitely stronger than their left wing depth. Because the right wing depth is Marner, Stone, Dorofeyev. I see they have Dorofeyev on the third line right wing right now, according to Daily Faceoff. So it's definitely stronger than their left side. But even like Barbashev, Smith, and Saad, like, it's not great, but it's not terrible. Like, Barbashev's
even
fine,
their defense,
it's okay.
Stador, McNabb, Hannafin, Whitecloud's good, and I like Korchak. I'm a bit high. I've watched some of the tape on him. I'm a bit higher on him than most people, And granted, they're going to start him with more sheltered minutes, but I definitely think he could snab like the white cloud spot in the top 4 for sure. I just think this team is deep. Like this team, it's a balanced roster in terms of they have a lot of good two-way guys as well. Again, and they just added a Selke level winger. And they know how to maximize the talents of the guys they do have. With the way they can offset players together is really good. Like they put Carlson and Smith back together, which the chemistry when those two guys were together was really good, and they're going to most likely have those guys back together in some capacity. If you're worried about shooting on your line, you can put Dorofeyev anywhere. If you need a bit more playmaking, you can put Barbashev. You can slot him wherever. I think the interesting thing is like Shea Theodore probably has to center more of a defense, like an offensive load on defense now with Pietrangelo out. But I think that's manageable.
You still have Hanifin behind him to take some of that load too. Right?
Right.
So it's not even that. It's not all on Theodore, right? And also, I was gonna say it's kind of crazy, man. They have two like Selke caliber right wingers on their team. Like that's great. Like, and they're guys that are
Marner,
point per game Selke caliber wingers, right wingers. That's crazy. Because Stone, I remember, I thought could have won a Selke at some point, and then Marner's always been.
I think he did win one.
Did he win one? I could be wrong. I might be remembering this wrong, but
year. Yeah.
He won one year. Okay, but and then Marner is always within the top 5, top 10 typically. So
yeah,
I have to think that penalty kill improves.
It's such an insane team, and they don't have to figure out roster. If anything, they have to figure out roster spots for the right reason. They might have too many overqualified guys at third slots. Like Dorofeyev as a third line projected right now feels criminal to me because he's just way too overqualified. Carlson potentially is your third line center because I don't think Hurdle's going to be third line. Is just criminally overqualified for that, right? And
also, even their fourth
I just look
line
at
too,
this.
Sissons.
Oh no, you're right. He finished second in the Selke and third one year, but he didn't win it. You're right.
I mean, close enough. I mean, that's about as close as you can get without winning it at that point. So
no, for sure. It's just it's a really balanced roster, and it's a roster that again they have the right. I talk about this with Edmonton. They have the right guys to cover even the liabilities. Like you talk about. Where Theodore's a bit of a defensive liability, but they have McNabb, who's about a very staunch defensive defenseman. Whitecloud kind of in a similar vein as well. Lozon helping out Korchek, who's going to kind of have to develop through the year. And then
their worst players are probably Colasar and Lozon. Like that's and they're fine bottom pieces, right? Like
And no one, I'll be honest, no one really cares that much about what your fourth line guys are.
Yeah, but that's my point is if your fourth line guys are your worst guys, and they're not even that bad bad compared to other fourth line guys, you have a good team.
Yeah, I think this team is really good. The question mark is goaltending. Aiden Hill. I know he had that great run. They won the cup. He was not good last year. Let's just call it what it is. He was not good last year. And there's a couple issues with Aiden.
I thought he was okay in the regular season, but bad in the playoffs. I thought that was what happened. Because according to goal save that was expected, I thought he had a 14 goal save. He was 15th out of. Oh, sorry, let me pull this. Let me bring it down to one game. He was 16th out of all goalies in goal save above expected. He was fine.
It's still if you're talking about
it's fine. I know, but it's at this you don't need him to be a superhuman elite goalie. I mean, if he is, then your team probably wins the cup. But I think my argument with him is if he just is just an above average goalie, you're fine.
I think my problem with him is he doesn't play a lot of games either, and I guess that's my issue. Is he's not for the lack. You think about a guy like Logan Thompson who pops elite numbers with low volume. Ben Bishop a couple of years ago, ideally a guy only playing around 50 who's max was 50 games. Max in his career was 50 games. I kind of want the numbers to pop a bit more. So maybe bad's not the right word.
Yeah, that's not the right word, but I do concede your point that if you're playing 50 games, you better hope that they're at least with, for example, I'll use the Leafs Stolar's case, right? He only plays 34
elite
games,
numbers.
Those are elite 34 games, right? So you can live with that. Whereas
to me, the issue with Hill is again, outside of that cup run, you get mediocre is the right word? Mediocre numbers for a guy that only plays 50 games. And this year they don't have a really strong backup to show. It's Akira Schmid right now. So you're going to is Hill going to play 60 games? Probably not. Is he 50 is the most he's played in a year? So the only issue is
2 games of Akira Schmid.
Right. That's going to be a potential issue. So you might have 32 games, 30 to at least 25 at most. 25 at minimum, I think, of Schmid. And again, I don't know. And then the playoffs were really disconcerting for me. I know it's a relatively small sample size. It was only 11 games. And you can talk about like 2 years ago, he had a 932 save percentage and led the playoffs for sure. Well, last year was a bit disconcerting playoffs. Not only the way he played, but the way it looked. Like there were a lot of bad goals he gave up last year. And like he put Vegas in some bad even against the Wild, who aren't an offensive.
Yeah, I was gonna say in that Wild series, I felt like the only reason the Wild stayed in that series as long as they did was because like Hill was so bad that it kept the Wild in the series. It kept them around for a lot longer than they should have been. Because I remember when that series was 2-2, I was like, this should not be a 2. Was it 2-2 or 3-1? I don't remember what it was, but
2-2,
like when that 2-2, I was 2-2. I remember I was like, this series should not be a 2-2 series. Like on paper, because we talked about it. We thought it was like a 4-1, like gentleman's.
Yeah, it should have been dog walked for sure.
Yeah.
So I am curious to see what the goaltending looks like, because if you're, let's take 50 as the benchmark. If you're talking about a 50 game Hill split where, again, the numbers aren't elite, they're okay, and then Schmid, who's, we don't know, massive question mark, that might be the only concern. But luckily for them, the Oilers also have their concerns in that. So, and the defense is good enough that no matter what goalie they put, their defensive play at the forward spot and their defense overall is good enough that I think you can at least mitigate the goaltending to extent. The issue might be when the playoffs come around, where you saw last year, like I had Vegas in the Cup Finals last year because, you know, when you talk about with Heiskanen,
even with how good your defense is, the better teams will find the occasional ways to explode. Even
the teams,
right?
The teams that have explosive offenses, if your goaltending is not good enough, it doesn't matter because you're facing that same team in a 7-game series. But for the regular season, I think the defense is good enough, the depth scoring is good enough, the center depth is good enough that even despite the goaltending questions in the regular season, they'll figure it out. So yeah, I have this team Cup rating 9 out of 10. Same with Edmonton. The question mark's the goaltending, but overall, this team is really fucking good.
X Factor Aiden Hill essentially at this point?
I think it's Shea.
Like, really?
So here's my argument.
We've kind of seen Shea and we know what he's capable of. Right? I guess like maybe the Pietrangelo being missing this year. Like,
I think the issue with Shea, it's Shea's health. My issue with Shea Theodore is like
his health.
He's an elite. Okay, if he can play a full season, he'd be in the Norris conversation. He is that good. Defensive liabilities at times, yes. Not as bad as Bouchard, though, but still has issues. But the way he controls the game offensively is just, he's in a very esteemed class, right? But he never stays healthy, and I don't know if he gets hurt, and, you know, you still have Korchak getting used to his first NHL season, and you have to have Hanifin shoulder basically the whole offensive load, because Whitecloud and McNabb aren't really providing anything if Theodore's out. That is a blow, right? And so for me, it's Shea Theodore, and not his performance, but his health would be the biggest X factor in where this team finishes in the regular season, I think.
That's fair. I think I lean more towards...
Because I've seen this team have bad goaltending in a regular season and somehow go 5 goalies deep and still make the playoffs. I think if like Hertl or Karlsson have issues, they can just swap one for the other. Although I think Hertl's better than Karlsson, but that's another topic for another time. Like, if Theodore is out now without Pietrangelo and Hanifin being your only offensive defense, he's good, he's not elite though, right? Theodore has the potential to be elite offensively. I have some concerns there if that's the case.
Well, I think it is a somewhat similar argument for the goaltending too, right? Because if Hill, you know, does get hurt too, because Hill also has the injury prone label sort of with him too, right? Like if he gets hurt too, then it's like you only have Schmid and nothing. I think there's arguments.
Well, like Vegas figures it out sometimes they'll grab random goalies I've never heard of. Do you remember that year they had like Yuri Patera play like?
The grabbing random goalies I just don't think is sustainable. I just think at least with Theodore being hurt, you have Hanifin back there to like supplement that. Like at least you have Hanifin. Like if he gets hurt, then there's question marks.
Fair enough. I've just at least seen it being done with. Like
you'd rather live with the random goalie. That's fair. Okay.
Yes, I'd rather live with the random goalies than losing Shea because I think Shea is so much more.
Fair enough. It's just I know it works, but like in my mind, it has to not work at some point because it can't always work.
But like I remember that year was like Patera, Hill. I think Jonathan Quick came onto the roster at one point. Like it was
was there Thompson too at one point too? I don't remember.
Maybe it was like. I have to pull up that year. 1 second. Was it 20? What year was it? 2022, 23?
Laurent.
Oh, here it was. Okay.
Yuri Patera, Dean Hill, Logan Thompson, Jonathan Quick.
Logan Brossois and Yuri Patera. Bro. What? And like all of them finished with the same percentage above 900.
You know what's funny? I think I'm looking at that year in the regular season. I know they Patera only played 2 games and Brossois only played 11 games, but they both finished with a higher goal saved above expected than Hill and Thompson. I mean, I know Thompson was a bit younger back then. It was like first couple years in the league. Hill,
I'm just saying, I've seen it done. I know past doesn't equal future, but like I've seen it done. I just don't know what they do if both Shea and Pietrangelo are, and suddenly you're rolling a Hannafin, McNabb, White Cloud, maybe Korchek top 4, because I don't know what that does. But yeah, overall we have it: Vegas 1, Edmonton 2, Vancouver 3, LA 4, Anaheim 5. You can figure out between Calgary and Seattle where you want them.
6, 7,
and then San Jose.
Yeah.
Okay. Most likely team to win the cup if you had to pick one out of this division.
I'll lean a little. Man, it's tough because, I mean, Edmonton's gotten there like the last 2 years, but like Vegas just feels the more like well-rounded team. I'll go Vegas. I'm still gonna lean Vegas. I think.
I'll
think
Vegas.
I also think because they added Marner too, like having another elite player helps that too. Because they did it like, they get close enough without the elite player, and then like now that they have one, it should be better. But like you can never rule out the Oilers. Apparently they'll find a way to do it in the playoffs every single time.
Player most likely to win MVP from this division. I mean, McDavid, right?
I'm gonna say Draisaitl only because McDavid's like he's had a few random health issues, like just that make him miss like a chunk of games, and like Draisaitl's been kind of outproduced him. So I'll go Draisaitl just because I think
I would just take the upside of McDavid because I think like if Draisaitl's because I think Kucherov's just a better scorer than Draisaitl is, and granted, Draisaitl said he might want to try to win a Selke, and he was really good defensively last year, so there's an argument. But
so if he wins the Selke and finishes top 5 in scoring, then maybe he gets the part by that.
I just think the ceiling where McDavid's 20 points clear of everybody else, you just can't overlook sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
And okay, team that made the playoffs last year that you think would be most likely to miss the playoffs this year in this division?
Kings. I think it's the Kings, right? I think it has to be the Kings, right? I don't think there's anybody else like. Because I think only 3 teams made it in this. I think. Because the Flames didn't make it, Kraken didn't make it. Obviously the Sharks didn't make it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Well, the Canucks would be my Canucks.
Well, they didn't make the playoffs last year, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Based on your questions, so I guess we can't.
It's probably the Kings by default.
It's the Kings by default,
and I'd say, okay, team most likely to Canucks would be the team most likely that missed the playoffs to make it this year. I think.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
We have them in 4th or 3rd. Sorry. So yeah. Team.
Okay. Last one here before we finish up here. The team in the division that if they so we have them ranked a certain way. The team that you think could substantially move up or down one way or another.
If we're gonna go with down, I'm gonna say, it's either the Kraken or the Flames. Which one do I really believe in?
If they move from 6th to 8th, is that really a big deal?
I know, but I don't see the Sharks moving from 8 to 6, right? So it's is there really anybody that's
my hot take? I think that there is a chance if the ceiling hits that the Ducks could be potentially 3rd in this division. I don't think it'll happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Ducks finish 3rd in this division.
See it because they have so many young guys. If all is the argument if all of them just hit somehow?
It's the argument that LA backslides. Pedersen doesn't regain his form.
Yeah, doesn't regain,
and the Ducks hit their ceiling.
So yeah, it's a combination of the other 2 teams hitting their worst possible outcome.
Exactly.
And the Ducks hitting their.
It wouldn't surprise me if the Ducks finish 3rd in that would be the bold one. It wouldn't surprise me if the Ducks finish 3rd in this division.
I was gonna joke in that case if the Ducks did get there. You think Lucas Dostal for the Vezina at that point? That might
probably
could be a conversation worth having, right? I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's our wrap. That wraps up pretty much our division preview here on the Pacific. I think it has 2 strong cup contenders, 1 dark horse, and a bunch of. It's to quote Moneyball. You got your good teams. You got 10 piles. You got 10 feet of shit, and then you got the rest of them. You got your good teams, and you got a lot of shit in this division, and that's kind of what it is. I do think they have 2 really good cup contenders in Vegas and Edmonton, I think you got a swing team in the Canucks that can go either way. And honestly, the rest we can kind of do without.
Yeah. I think for the next one we're gonna do. I think we said the Metro.
The Metro, yeah.
The Metro. Okay.
I think we're kind of going by divisional strength. So I have it Pacific, Metro, Atlantic, Central.
Atlantic, Central. Yeah, Central's the best by far. Atlantic's probably the second best because like the top four are pretty good, and then
pretty good.
We just did the Pacific, so Metro's left is third by default. Then okay, that's fair.
Yeah, so that's all we got for the Pacific today. Again, leave any comments if you disagree, agree one way or another. I mean, it's most likely a chance we're going to be wrong. So, it happens.
We'll be wrong about something. I just don't know what we'll be wrong about. We might be wrong about all of it. Who knows? Like if the measles happens for some reason, then maybe we'll just be wrong about everything. For example,
imagine the measles come in and the Ducks. That would be awesome. That'd be such a throwback. The Ducks
to the Mighty Ducks movies, right? That'd be such a joke.
But yeah, that's us on the Pacific Division. Again, I'm SJ. That's WillyDubz. It's late. We're signing out. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
All right. See you guys later. Peace.